Yeah, I think a big issue last time with streams was that I was using my AirPods, and using the AirPods and my iPhone both on the Bluetooth. I think we're just causing the computer to get upset.
Indeed. We are live. Hello, everyone. We're live.
Great intro.
Yeah, it's just that's describing technical issues. This is what we do here. I'm here, of course, with the usual stooges, but this time we are joined by Erin of Erin's Audio Corner. And just before we roll into the stream, let's give a big shout out to Erin and plug his channel. Erin's Audio Corner on YouTube. Is there anywhere else folks can find you?
Patreon.
Oh,
Patreon,
yeah. Hey,
yeah.
Patreon. How to forget that? You're so good at this, man. And then just our website, AaronsAudioCorner.com. That's basically where I just post the data that I talk about in my reviews.
Yeah.
But seriously, back him on Patreon. You get behind the scenes stuff sometimes, you get data ahead of time, and you're contributing to the best speaker reviewer on the planet.
Well, I appreciate that. I won't agree with it because that's an egotistical thing to agree with, but I will take it and I will say thank you.
and that's really the subject matter for the stream today is we talk a lot about headphones here, but not enough about speakers. So we have the speaker man himself to drop them knowledge bombs.
Or get stoned. Please don't. I have no idea, dude. I've never heard of that before.
Actually, yeah. So we do have some sort of a show here. It'll probably be a little bit of a shorter one. Just before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping for folks who are regular viewers. We have decided to not list the VODs of these streams because it turns out that it's going to the wrong audiences. People still don't seem to realize that these are live streams, so we are leaving them as unlisted after the fact. Folks can still find them in the playlists, though. That's where they will be. It's just we don't want it to clog up the usual video feeds that people get who don't want to watch this kind of content, because we have a tendency to be overly verbose.
Overly verbose for their expectations.
Yes, too verbose for the expectations. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people like the amount of verbose we are. It's just those people aren't making comments.
I feel like overly verbose is verbose itself.
It is. Yeah, but that's the point.
Oh, okay.
Rather grandiloquent in general.
Yeah. But just before we get going here with speaker discussions, Blaine, would you like to do the usual shout outs to how all of this is made possible?
Yes, as always, we are brought to you by Headphones.com, your #1 source for not just headphones, but also speakers, DACs, amps, and cables. As always, you should visit our web store, Headphones.com, or if you're in Canada, Headphones.ca for some of our stock that exists and ships from Canada. In addition to having a storefront, we obviously have this channel, The Headphone Show, as well as our written reviews and informative stuff on the audio files accessible on Headphones.com. As always, also join our communities, both on Discord, which is discord.gg/headphones, and also forum.headphone.com. On forum.headphones.com, you'll find the thread where sometimes we pull topics from, particularly when we're running short of ideas. So if you'd like to contribute, please do. Although if you want to interact with us, you're more likely to find us on Discord. And please buy things, because otherwise we'll all starve to death.
It's almost like we're into headphones here with all the headphone words being thrown around. All right, let's get into
we have speakers. We stock Kef.
Yeah, that's true.
As an addition to what Blaine said, Andrew and I in particular have been more active on the forum as of recent, just because there are some discussions going on there about the nerdier science side of audio. So if any of you are into that kind of stuff, definitely check out those threads on the forum.
Yeah. So if you post good topics on the forum, we will talk there. It's just normally you don't. So be better.
They are. The community, I am, shout outs to folks like Mr. Zerkalt. I think that's how you say his name. And then also the other one, I think Michael was his name. Anyway, shout outs to the forum users who've been contributing great stuff. Luke as well. All right, let's get into today's show, which is all about speakers and speaker-like things. Some of it's about speakers.
I don't want to talk about speakers, man. I'm here to talk about headphones.
All right, let's talk about that. Actually,
that definitely throws a wrench into all of the topics we have prepared.
Oh, really? Y'all have
not mine one.
Topics.
We have a bunch of speaker topics. We don't have as many headphone topics, but
so I actually have a question before we get into the speaker topics. A question for Erin. So a lot of the time, like you review stuff with data, obviously, right? Like that's a core part of it. It's a core part of what we do as well.
Yeah.
And it inevitably, when we review something with data, we will get people basically criticizing our reviews because we only focus on the data and we don't focus on the other things about sound quality, like resolution or whatever else, right? Now,
Right.
obviously, when I watch your reviews, one of my favorite moments is when you describe the bass as chocolatey, and you did that really awesome video about the term, the audiophile words that people use.
Yeah.
Do you get people as well in your comments or just wherever you may have seen, feedback to your reviews online that are making similar noises about like, oh, great that you provided the data, but like, tell me about the resolution or the other sort of stuff that people have in their minds about how these things perform? Obviously, we're not saying this is a separate property, but people think that, and that's why I'm wondering if you
Yeah,
receive that
no,
as well.
100%, man. Like
Okay.
most of my comments, no, not most of them. I think that's too many. I would say a reasonable amount of my comments are based around like, well, you didn't tell me how it sounds, or you didn't tell me which one was the best. I've gotten a few of those. Like I'll do kind of like shootout style videos. And you guys know as well as I do, there's always trade-offs in this space, right? Like price, performance, looks, all those things matter. And they matter differently to different people. So I try to just say, like, here's the experience you're probably going to have. Here's what the price is. Here's how it objectively performs. And here's how it's probably going to sound, in your space, depending on your setup. And then I'll leave it at that. Like, I've helped you. I've given you information. Hopefully you make the decision that makes sense for you. And then people will still say, well, which one should I buy? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not me. Like, I'm not that guy. And like, if you're my friend and you're like, I got $200, what should I buy? Then I'm like, okay, cool. Go get this thing. Cause I know them and I know their setup. But outside of that, you just try to do the best you can. Yes. The answer to your question is yes, man. I get
Okay.
those all the time. And, you kind of tapped on it, but I'll mention it because it's kind of a frustration of mine is that people will see my channel. And when I first started, I was very objective oriented. Like I hardly talked about subjective at all. And as I've gone on, I realized like the purpose of what I really want to do is to tie those two together. And I've tried to find different ways to do it. And even now I'm experimenting with like sound clips and stuff to try to see if I can drive that home. But people really latch onto the objective and they're like, well, you don't listen to speakers. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. Like, why do you think I'm doing this? I started because I really love music and I wanted to understand a little bit more about why I heard what I heard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that all the time. I think it's a lot of projection, man. People just come in, they either see one thing or the other. And it's like, guys, there's a lot of overlap between objective and subjective. There has to be. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what's the point? Like if you're only looking at measurements, then why do you bother about listening? And if you're only listening, then why are you looking at measurements? So there's enough room on the plate for everybody to eat.
I think there's this idea from a certain side of the community, or maybe communities, that the people who are doing the data capture measurements of any kind are doing so because their interest is in using the equipment that is intended to capture data, not primarily to listen to music. But because like the thing that's missing there is exactly what you said. It's like, well, why are we doing this? The whole point of it is to be able to understand and better predict the sound quality for others, for the people who are engaging with that material, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, we can get into the topics that we have. Where did you want to start, Griffin?
I mean, I guess we can just start at the top. I will say there was kind of a lead in with what you mentioned as far as just tell me what to buy.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess my first question to you is, in your mind, what are the essentials for people to know about before buying a speaker?
Okay, so I guess let's strip away cost and apparent value.
Sure.
Let's strip away the looks because in my experience, when you get to a certain price point, you're paying for either SPL, like more output, or you're paying for the look. That's usually what happens when you cross like maybe $1,000 for a bookshelf speaker. That's what you're getting from there on. Which, additional SPL just really also means like lower distortion. And then hopefully you're maintaining linearity throughout. Now you can pay a lot of money for a non-linear speaker and that's whatever.
Many people do.
Yeah. And anyway, that's a side topic. I would typically just kind of say, if I'm talking, and I try to treat my videos this way as if I'm talking to a friend or friends and I'm describing, here's what I heard when I listened to it. Here's the data. Here's how I think they correlate. And here's some attributes, objective attributes about this speaker that I think might work well in this environment or another one. So I would say you kind of need to understand your room. it helps if you have an understanding of how speakers in the past have performed that you've also had in that room. For example, like if you have a really reflective room and you've had speakers in there that are radiate radiate very widely, then that can create a more diffuse soundstage, like more diffuse image within the soundstage. And you kind of got to think like, do I want that, or do I want like hyper focus? And if you want that, then you need a more narrow radiating speaker. If your room doesn't really have any sod walls, you can look. If you have sod walls, then you need a speaker that does really well on and off axis, right? And so there are all these little wormholes that you can get into with this stuff. I'll give you an example. A lot of people, when I reviewed the Kef Blade 2 metas, I had some people say that, well, I heard them in so-and-so and I didn't like them. And when you ask them like where they heard it in a demo room where there's no sod walls. And I'm like, these speakers really benefit from sod wall reflection because they're designed to have really good off-axis performance. So other speakers, that may not have good off-axis performance, if you hear them in a wide open space, then you hear basically just the direct sound, and that's it. You don't hear any reflected sound, and it sounds good because it performs well on axis. But when you have poor off-axis performance and those hit the walls and reflect back to you, then you've got issues. Typically, it's going to be like a bump in the lower treble region or something like that. It's going to sound forward or hot, glaring, whatever you want to call it. So I would say it helps if you understand your room and you understand the speakers that you already listened to, and hopefully there's some measurements out there. And then the other thing too is like, how close can you place the speaker to the wall? Some speakers need a lot more room to properly breathe, if you will. Some speakers are actually designed to be placed closer to the wall. So those things matter as well. And I'm sure there's other ones that I'm not thinking of right now, but I think those are probably the more important aspects.
If somebody doesn't understand their room, I mean, like you mentioned, like it's important for people to understand their room. At a certain point, I imagine folks are just guessing, right? Like they're like,
absolutely.
Well, this
we
might
all
just
start, yeah. We all start not knowing anything.
Yeah, exactly. If they're just gonna guess and say, well, I might have a carpet in there, but apart from that, haven't really done any like, proper or any consideration for treatment or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just a room. What metric do you think people should pay the most attention to? Like, should they look at, like estimated in room or, like listening window, or like what specific thing should they look at in data for the speaker if they don't fully, if they're just guessing when it comes to their room?
I got you. So I'll walk that back a little bit. When I say understand your room, I guess I just mean know what your room looks like and have an idea of where your speaker is going to be placed in that room. You don't necessarily have to understand like what's the decay time of my room or anything like that. But if you have side walls that are pretty close to the speaker and you're going to be sitting far away, or if you're going to be sitting close to the speaker, or if the speaker's going to be placed close to the wall, behind the speaker, all those things matter. And then you can say, all right, well, now I have an understanding of what factors are going to matter to me. So going back to the wall behind the speaker, if you want to put the speaker close to the wall, then you want a speaker that kind of has a certain base shelf. If you're going to bring it really far out from the room, or you have the ability to, then you can have a speaker that has a more shallow roll off. And those are kind of things you can look for. If you're looking for a speaker that is going to go into a reflective room, then you want something that has really good directivity, especially horizontal directivity. Because what happens, kind of like I said a minute ago, when you start getting from the mid frequency to the high frequency, you're kind of narrowing up in that mid frequency. And if the crossover isn't implemented to where you have a same pattern matching type deal where the mid range hands off to the tweeter, then all of a sudden that tweeter comes in and it's really wide. And you have a lot of reflections off the sidewall from the tweeter region, and you don't have a lot of reflections from the upper mid range. So that disparity between them two is going to sound quite different than the direct sound. So you're going to have some kind of timbre mismatching, and you'll run into typically a bright forward sounding speaker because of that. And you can't just go EQ that out, because if you go and try to EQ down 4 kilohertz because of the in wall or the in room response, then you're also EQing down maybe good direct sound. So you're changing that, but you're basically fighting yourself. So for most rooms, ideally, you want a speaker that has good direct sound, good linear direct response, and good tapering off-axis response. But so we understand that just from Dr. Tool's work, right? Like I'm basically just regurgitating the science. This isn't me coming up with anything. This is just what I've read, decades worth of research. But what I often see is there are intricacies and nuances to this data, and to understanding it, and to understanding how it relates to your room. And that's why I go back to, if you just look at your room, I've got a reflective room. Okay, maybe I want a speaker that performs this way. I've got a non-reflective room. Okay, I can probably get away with a speaker that doesn't perform in the same manner. Maybe it has good on-axis response, but off-axis isn't so great. But because there's not sidewalls anywhere near that speaker, doesn't matter quite as much.
Gotcha.
So when you say, just for our audience who might not be aware, when you say things like good directivity or good off-axis response, what exactly are you referring to?
Okay, so most of the time, if you've seen speaker measurements, it's just been on-axis response. That means the speaker's pointed directly at you. Somebody measured it at the tweeter level. There was no reflections, anything like that. So it's just, here's what the speaker's doing when it's pointed directly at you. And then as you turn the speaker.
By the way, I have a CEA 2034 up. If you
Griffin,
want
your
a
mic
visual
is
aid.
Your mic is crackling like crazy.
Oh yeah, my computer's also lagging. Hold on.
Excellent.
Now it's not. Now it is.
Oh, and now the stream has crashed.
Really?
We need.
It works to me.
We need to get Griffin a
Stream's
new
up
computer.
for me. Yeah, we do need to get Griffin a new computer.
Yeah, OBS is not happy with me.
Yeah, you're dropping frames.
No, it's saying I'm actually not dropping any frames. It just says that that YouTube is not receiving information.
I'm just trying to entertain these folks while you're getting stuff.
Oh, believe me, half of them come here just to watch us struggle.
Okay, so
All right,
I'm wondering if I could just restart OBS.
No, you can't do that because that'll shut the.
Okay.
My enemy.
Someone in chat says a Mac Mini M4. We probably really should do that, actually.
Hey man,
I would need a monitor as
Mac
well.
Mini
but
M1.
yeah.
And it's
What do you mean you don't have a monitor?
I use laptop. I am on laptop.
You sound good and look good to me.
He's okay now. It's
I don't
okay.
mean it like that. But I could mean it
Okay.
like that.
But what I was saying is, Erin, I do have a CEA 2034 up of the LSX LT2 wireless. If you
pull
want
it
a
up if you
visual
want.
aid.
Yeah, I can do that.
Do you?
I do. Just give me a
I
second.
don't see it on stream.
I haven't pulled it up yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that why the stream died?
Maybe I did navigate to the website.
That's the problem.
Oh, it's my website. I've got viruses all over it.
Oh no, it's
not.
It's not your website. I just went to Pierre's site, the Spinorama.
Oh, that's even worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
it's
French.
pretty
So
bad. Hold
yeah,
on.
you know those French are. Alienating half of your crowd, right? Especially the French Canadians.
Okay.
No, I mean, we're always happy to offend Canadians. They offend us all the time, or at least they offend me all the time.
That's
The things
just me.
Canadians will say to you when you're an American in a Canadian company are messed up.
I don't doubt
Okay.
it. That's how
Well,
they roll.
you should be good, Erin, if you want to talk about good off-axis or good directivity.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to make this as quick as I can. So on axis is like when the speaker's pointed directly at you, and that's it. Like you get direct sound, boom, that's it. And off axis is like as you go around the speaker, right? So as you walk around the speaker to the side of it or above or below it, those are off axis. So in like 10 degrees, 180 degrees would be like way behind the speaker, that kind of thing. When you put a speaker into a room, you hear the direct sound, but you also hear all the reflected sound, and it's diminished more due to the radiation. So what I mean by that is most monopole speakers will radiate omnidirectionally, like all around the speaker at lower frequencies, and then 300, 400, 500, 600 hertz, they start to become more directional, which means like now the sound is being focused more up front. And as it's focused more up front, you get less reflections off the side wall, the wall behind the speaker, above and below, off the floor and the ceiling. If you put a speaker, or when you put a speaker into the room, again, you're getting direct sound and reflected sound. And ideally what you want is you want that direct sound to sound similar to the sound that's reflected off the walls, right? Like that's the ideal. And if you have some kind of disparity between those two sounds, then it's not going to sound spectrally correct. What can cause that is, let's say you have a 6-inch mid-range, and typically they beam around, I can't do the math in my head, but let's just ballpark it at 1500 hertz. When I say beam, the speaker is omnidirectional. It's radiating all the way around it. Just the drive unit, just a raw mid-range by itself is radiating omnidirectionally. And as it begins to beam, it just starts to focus up on its own, just the raw drive unit. And then you got to pair it up with the tweeter. So then you bring the tweeter in, and now the tweeter at lower frequencies is going out to the side, all that stuff all around it. And then at higher frequencies, it also narrows up. So with a crossover, what you're trying to do is you're trying to sync up the beaming of that midwoofer to that tweeter. And then you can do that number of ways. You can cross really low, so where the midwoofer isn't beaming so much forward, it's still pretty broad. And then that matches the radiation pattern of the tweeter. Or you can try to make the tweeter radiate more forward by putting in like a deep waveguide or something like that. And then you match the beaming of that mid-range to the beaming, well, not really beaming, but the focused nature of that tweeter. And so in doing that, what you've done then is you've matched the balance of that speaker horizontally and hopefully vertically as well, but that's typically much less. And then you get the same direct sound and reflected sound. It's just the reflected sound is lower in treble, essentially, right? If you don't have that matching of the radiation pattern between the midwoofer and the tweeter, then the sound that's reflected off the side walls is different. And typically what you're going to have is more energy reflected off the side walls at the lower treble, because there's more energy from that tweeter than there is at the mid-range going out to the side of that speaker. And that typically results in like a sibilant, a forward, maybe a honky. Not me, I'm not a honky, but maybe a honky sound. You'll have those kind of subjective attributes tied to the speaker sound. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, the difference between on-axis and off-axis and how that works for you in your room.
Mhm.
Right.
Just
So
to
just
tie
to
it to
kind
the
of-
CA,
please.
yeah, the CA 2034, aka the Spinorama. You see that there's quite a lot of frequency response lines there, and people on our channel should be familiar with what a frequency response is.
Right.
The on-axis is literally just the anechoic, point the microphone directly at whatever the reference axis is, measure it.
Right.
The listening window is an average of a bunch of angles that are close to on-axis.
Right.
And then the early reflections and sound power are averaging in increasingly more angles. Early reflections goes wider out to the sides. Sound power is the average of all of the output on every axis of the speaker. And then those two lines at the bottom, the directivity indexes, are simply the ratios of the on-axis energy to the off-axis energy. When those numbers go higher, it means that there is more energy on-axis than off-axis. In the very rare cases where they do the opposite, it means that on-axis has less than off-axis.
Yep. Yeah, and an example of a case where you would have negative directivity, where you have more sound toward the back of the speaker than you do toward the front, would be something like the Bose 901. So some of you guys may be familiar with that speaker, which is a wild speaker. There's 8 mid-range drivers on the back, and there's just, I think, one full range on the front. I'm trying to remember now, but I reviewed that one a few years ago, and it's a wild sounding speaker, but it's cool. Soundstage is imaging is terrible. Soundstage is huge. Accuracy is also pretty terrible, but you can EQ the accuracy to kind of help it a little bit. But yeah, it's an interesting speaker.
The high acoustic envelopment, low everything else speaker.
Yeah, no, exactly. Which I saw that they're supposed to be coming out with a newer version of that. Now I've seen people say that it's a limited edition, depends on what page you follow. But yeah, Bose is coming out with an updated version of the 901. And again, some websites say there's only 12 of them like going to be released. But then I don't know. I'm thinking if they're doing it, then they're probably doing it for real. So I'm going to try hard to get my hands on a pair, because I think those are some wild speakers.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's probably one of the most eccentric speaker designs that, if it comes back, will be on the market, because a lot of the other weird speaker designs like Mirage and stuff have died out.
Yeah.
Those guys.
What's also kind of interesting is I've had this gentleman, I'm not going to say his name, but I've had him on my channel to interview him before. He's an ex-JBL loudspeaker engineer, very, very popular among the JBL and Lansing Heritage folks. But I spoke with him a few weeks ago, and I actually mentioned that speaker to him, and he said he was trying to essentially rebuild the 901, but make it better as just a pet project, because he's retired now. And I was like, dude, send it to me. He's like, yeah, once I get that finished, I'll send it to you, and you can throw it on the clipper for a spin. I was like, sweet.
Sick.
Oh, so that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Extremely hyped.
Well, I think that kind of answers the question of what are the essentials to know. It's know your room, know the on-axis and off-axis behavior of the speaker, as well as, I guess, SPL requirements, if that's a thing.
So the mean time to learn enough to buy a speaker is about 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, honestly, sometimes I think
you just go to Erin's site.
I think the easiest, just go to my site, look for whatever I say to buy, and then do that.
Literally,
I think the easiest thing to do is get a reasonable budget, maybe $500 to $1,000 for a pair of bookshelf speakers, and start with something that I recommend or ASR recommends or somebody that recommends something like that. And then look at the data, like listen to them and say like, hey, I like this or I don't like this. And then watch the review and look at the data and see what you can make sense of it. And then your next purchase is going to be a lot more simple. And man, there's so many companies that sell this stuff that will allow you to try them out in home. There's no reason not to try some of these out and send them back. They're going to charge you return shipping, but I think that's fair for the opportunity that they
The demo, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Fair. The next topic we have is the most important differences between speakers and headphones. Or is that
from your perspective, to be clear, because I think people have heard this from us for the most part, and also because our time is limited.
We do need to send some headphones.
Yeah. I mean, my experience with headphones is pretty limited. Like, I've got some friends who are really deep into it, and they go to all these can jams and things like that, and they tell me about it. My personal experience is, the room isn't there, right? Like that's the most obvious thing. And so I like for sound to be out in front of me instead of here. And I've still not come across a set of headphones that make me feel like the sound is way out here. So if you guys got any of those, send them my way. But
you won't.
But we're going to touch on that topic later.
Okay. All right.
Related to this, I mean, is the question of, like, I even just got this yesterday. Somebody on our forum messaged me and said, hey, if I EQ my headphones to sound like my neutral speakers, right? Like if I'm doing like, manual tone gen to get them to match, am I doing it right? And, the problem is always like, well, your condition is different because the speaker is at a distance and at a location, whereas the headphones, it's the sound helmet effect, right? And so really you got to be EQing for what the sound helmet effect is supposed to be. And that's where the disconnect comes in. And I think for a lot of people, not like, it's weird to talk about that because there is an expectation that, well, yeah, speakers should sound like flat measuring speakers, but this sort of disconnect is kind of the struggle I think that a lot of people have. Anyway, that's we don't need to go into that. We do go into that all the time.
Well, yeah, I think the other significant difference, which actually we'll probably touch on later, is bass, but we can skip that.
It's always bass. No, but actually, like the bass and its directivity in headphones, and anyway, yeah,
directivity.
Okay.
Next one, probably also a short one, but one I'm definitely curious about. What was it like buying a Clipple? Like, how did that process actually go from beginning to end?
So I've been reviewing raw drivers since like 2010 or 2011. And when I got started, I think probably for a few months at least, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at some of this stuff. I was just doing some frequency response. It was terrible. I don't even want to go into it. It was bad. And then there was this website, DIYmobileaudio.com, that I was part of this forum. And most people know me. I've got my start in DIY audio, home audio, and mostly car audio. So they needed somebody to provide measurements using some Clipple hardware. This wasn't their near field scanner. They didn't even have this thing at the time, but it was just is their distortion analyzer too. There's the hardware. And then they have modules or software packages. And with the modules, you can measure different things like distortion from a raw drive unit, excursion, linearity, the basic attributes that you need. And then you could do some other stuff too that's pretty wild. But in car audio, it's all just marketing. There was no resource, at least at the time, that had objective measurements for car audio drive units. So with the Clipple, what you could do is you could measure excursion with a laser. And then we found out pretty quickly that there's a lot of manufacturers say our excursion, let's just say like it's 10 millimeters one way, but per the IEC standard, which measures excursion in a different way, you'd find out that it has like maybe 3 or 5 millimeters one way, and it was just way off. Manufacturers will rate their excursion in different manners. There's like 2 or 3 different ways you can do it, but I like the IEC standard being able to normalize all this stuff. So I did testing for that forum website for a couple of years, and then I came across a speaker driver that just didn't turn out that well. And by the way, this is when I also built like an 8-foot tall IEC baffle in my upstairs room, which that was fun. So the manufacturer got back to the website owner and basically was like, hey, take this review down because it makes us look bad, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'm not doing this anymore. So then I went to Clipple and got my own hardware from them, started up my own website. And that was
So when you say you went to Clipple and got your own hardware from
I sent an
them,
email to them and said, hey, I need, like, we had this working relationship. I need this thing. Yeah, like I'm done with this website. I sent them their stuff back and I went through Clipple and got the stuff directly through them. So when I was a reviewer, I was loaned by the website owned the hardware. And I forgot to mention that. So they loaned me the hardware to do the reviews for their website. But when I realized I didn't like that, being beholden to somebody else, I just sent the stuff back and I went to Clipple myself and got it from them directly.
Did they end up taking it down?
I have to go look. I really don't remember.
Oh.
I really don't remember. I went back and forth a while for, and what's crazy is that the people who own the brand now are actually friends of mine. Like it's a really good friend of mine. He's been a Patreon member for ever since I started it up. I love the dude to death. He's not at all related to that. So I kind of am hesitant to say the brand because it has nothing to do with them anymore. Yeah. That original owner left a long time ago.
Well, we've talked about this before, but like we do live in an era where like there's a lot of that happens. Behind the scenes for a lot. I think that these days, maybe it's naive of me to say this, but I think we've kind of moved away from some of the more sort of traditional publication models that a lot of these audio companies have participated in, and where those types of practices would have run rampant.
And nobody would ever know.
Yeah, and nobody would know. Yeah, I'd like to think that we've moved away from that, or like we're generally heading. The trend is to move away from that, and that those publications are sort of no longer the popular places to get information on this stuff. I don't know as much in the speaker world, right? And like when we go to these high-end shows that have crazy speaker setups, it's like it feels like you're walking backwards into that older world again.
Yeah, definitely interesting for sure.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Okay.
Our next,
so that.
So I'll speed that
basically,
up.
you cold emailed them.
Yeah. I mean, so I'd emailed them back and forth about like tech related issues or questions that I had, so I had an established relationship with them. And then around whenever COVID hit, was that 2019 or so, I started watching home audio reviews and I thought, man, what the fuck are these guys talking about? It was just such nonsense, man. It was just like just pulling just words out of their ass. And I was like, there's nothing legitimate to any of this stuff. So I decided to start doing measurements in my own YouTube channel. And I was using measurement methods that are outdoors, like quasi-anechoic measurements, ground plane measurements, stitch them together. It was taking me 12, 15 hours to measure a speaker. I thought, I can't keep doing this. So I contacted Clipple again about their near-field scanner. And then I'll just say our relationship helped me, like.
Hell yeah.
Like it's really not anybody else's business, but I also don't want to lie. But, our relationship definitely helped me getting some stuff that was used and for a price that I could afford it. So I'll put it that way. But yeah,
I mean, look, it's us who reap the benefits of that. So we want you to be getting whatever deals you can, as long as it allows us to get the data.
Yeah, even and I will tell you right now, if I took everything that I've made off of YouTube, any affiliate links, any PayPal, any Patreons, anything, there is no way that's coming. There's no way, like no way.
Yeah.
So I'm still working on that, but one of these
that's
days.
Why you guys should subscribe to Erin on Patreon.
Hey, I appreciate that. I work a day job. I'm never going to quit that. I was actually making a list of stuff I wanted to talk about for an year-end video, and that's one of those. Is like I've never quit my day job for YouTube because it's so fickle, and there's no money in it. Period for me, right? Like no matter, there's just no money in it for me. So anyway,
not for us either.
I don't understand how I've got friends who are doing this for a living, and I just don't understand. I'm not asking them about their financials. I just, from the outside looking in, thinking, man, how do you guys do this for a living? Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who do make tons of money on YouTube, but it's like very like it's to the point where like that's the reason. The fact that other people make money on YouTube is the reason why I was banned from the States. Because I tried.
He's not banned from the
not
States, for
banned,
the record.
but I'm.
Oh, okay.
He lied to an immigration and customs agent
That's
about
not
whether
true.
he was.
That's not
Oh,
true.
There's a lot of
Taryn,
untruths going on around here.
we told the truth. That was the problem. We didn't lie. We
Oh.
said, so Taryn, we were driving across the border to shoot something in Portland, to do like manufacturer tour. And Taryn mentioned to the border guard that I did YouTube, right? Because they asked like, oh, what do you? And I happened to have my camera and my gimbal in the front seat. And so they immediately like, okay, straight to secondary. But it's because like, they went through the whole thing with us, right? Like, okay, like, you know, you make money off of this, you're in Canada and you're trying to do something in the States, therefore you're going to be denied entry and you're not allowed. If you try and do this again, you'll be arrested, that kind of thing.
Oh, dang.
Which was like super hardcore, right? They took my fingerprints and everything. But the thing is, I realize it's because there actually are people who are genuinely making large amounts of money off of YouTube. And so now they're overcorrecting for that, for anybody who does anything that your videos are put on YouTube, even if you make like pennies, right? Because the ad revenue, as you know, is next to nothing.
Oh, it's abysmal.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
even on some of my best videos, and you guys know too, like for the audience, just a little peek behind the curtain is like, if you're doing YouTube videos and you're relying on that for money, the most opportune time for you to make money is as soon as you drop it, right? Because that's when YouTube algorithm is doing its thing. That's when people are commenting and liking, and it's building a lot of steam. And usually within like the first day, that's where all the money is made. Unless you're somebody like, you know, Linus Tech Tips or, you know, Mr. Beast or somebody who's got like a huge following of people who will watch it 2, 3, 4 days later. Usually the money is made on the first day. The largest amount of money that I've made on the first day for a video was $150. And then after that, it just drops off precipitously. You know, like maybe year end is $200 on that video. I think the best video that I've made, I think it's like $800, and that was one of my first videos, a Subwoofer shootout video, like 3 years ago, and at total, because I just looked like a few hours ago, it's $854 is where it's sitting at. Like imagine like this is your income, this is your only source of income, and 3 years later, that's the most that video has made. Like that's what I'm saying. The guys who do this for a living, dude.
Well, they're also making money with like, you know, sponsored videos and all kinds of other stuff too, right?
The holy trinity is sponsored videos, Patreon, and affiliate links.
Affiliates,
yeah. I the majority of my money that I make off of doing this, I would say Patreon and affiliate links are close together. And the affiliate links too is something else. We may be going a little bit off track, but I like talking about this with fellow content creators. It's something I've struggled with. Initially, I was like, no way I'm ever doing affiliate links. And then I thought, well, I'm providing objective data, so there's less to worry about there. You know, I'm not really selling people on it. But then as I've gotten, like in the past couple months, I've started to get more like, I don't really like affiliate links. So I just really push the generic ones, you know, and I may go back to direct affiliate links in the future. I don't know. I'm wishy-washy on that.
I'm not a fan of the auto tagging
of
products. In like YouTube does this thing now where they
auto tag.
I didn't choose for that.
That makes us look bad.
It does.
Yeah, that makes us look bad because people assume that we're trying to sell that thing, and I'm like, I don't even know what that thing is.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that thing is. Yeah, no, I hear you. That's frustrating.
Yeah. So no, I had to manually disable it so it didn't, or had to opt out, right? It's weird that it would turn it on by default.
You could do that.
Yeah. It took me a while to find it, but I found it, so now it doesn't do that anymore. But that's just, I mean, it's packaged in this idea of like, well, it's good for creators because then they can make more money. And that's true. It's just that it also makes them look like shills.
It does. Yeah, I don't like that. I try to, you know, I want to be the one. If I want to be a shill, I want to be the one to decide I'm going to be a shill.
Exactly. You know? Yeah.
Cameron, one of our creators in chat, suggested that you should get an affiliate link from Clipple if we end up buying a Clipple near field scanner.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
In the immediate future.
I know 7 that have been sold because, I hate to say because of me, but I can tell you that I had my hand in helping them purchase like these.
Well, you better be getting commission on that.
Yeah, right. No, but they're really nice. Every time I email those guys, they're like quick to respond. So that helps.
I think DMS wants to build one, of course.
Just buy one.
There's been a DIY audio thread about that for like 5 years, but it's hellish.
Even Earl Geddes is involved in that thread.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Earl Geddes.
Yeah. So,
AKA, you actually are probably aware of him, Andrew, because he was the guy. He was
am.
the Ged in Gedley.
And Gedley, I am.
Gedley
Yes.
metric. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And then the Patreon thing too. That's been a big help. Like that's allowed me to purchase things, to review for the channel. But then honestly, man, just to take my kid out somewhere cool or take my girlfriend out to eat for an anniversary. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's cool. Yeah, like it used to feel bad to make money, but I'm thinking as long as you feel good about the product that you're providing people,
You
cool.
provide an immensely valuable service. It would be
nobody else
a
is.
real shame if you weren't being compensated at all for it.
Yeah.
I think everyone on the stream here can agree that you should probably be compensated more for it, but
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I'm going off topic here a little bit, but just on that note, do you think the interest, like one of the things that we sort of think about when, if you're just like Googling like whatever X brand speaker or X brand, headphone or whatever review, the videos that are the most popular videos that most people watch on those products they're not typically the ones that provide the best data or even data at all. And what I wonder is, do you think that there's a sense in which providing the amount of data and doing the type of analysis that you do limits or sort of isolates the potential for that audience, right? The ones who are interested in that side of things? Or do you think that it's a matter of just like hitting a broader audience and people will eventually get on board?
No, I think you're right. And I think I understand your question, but I'm gonna flip it a little bit. I think that what might happen just for my channel personally is that some manufacturers are probably going to be less happy, maybe more hesitant to send me something to review. So from that perspective, it probably hurts. Like I've reached out to a couple higher end manufacturers to ask about stuff. ATC is one. Wilson Audio, I've been bugging them like crazy lately. And there are others that I don't want to say because I can't remember how many times I've emailed them. So I don't want to lie, but for sure those two. And I've not heard anything back from ATC. Was a weird one because they were like, yeah, well, we'll help you out. We'll send you something. And this was like last year, I think, that they said, we'll get back to us, in January. I believe it's what it was. And I emailed them just a couple days ago even, and I'm just not getting any replies back. Magico is another one, which Magico kind of surprised me because they have a clip-on near field scanner. If you Google it, they've got their huge flagship M9 speaker is recorded with it clipple going all around it. They make like a 30-second clip of it going over 24 hours, or like a time lapse. So yeah, they're definitely brands that I would love to review, but I think because my reviews have objective information in them, they think I'm only objective.
Risky reviewer.
Yeah, right. So and
Magico is a weird one though. Like,
that's
you would
that
think that they would. That would be like if Ascend wouldn't do stuff to you, right? Or actually, does Ascend send you stuff?
They have, but I've kind of just like, there's no point now. But Magico doesn't. I think maybe they published one because I've seen it out in the open, but I don't think they published their results like on their website openly for everybody to see. So maybe that's part of it too. But I'm thinking
that's very strange.
Yeah, my thing is, you guys, you're in the same boat. I'm free publicity. I don't charge for review. The only thing that costs you money is for you to ship it to me and have it shipped back as a manufacturer. That's it. I don't ask for anything. I don't ask to keep anything, nothing. It's free publicity. And I don't devour speakers unless they're bad, unless they deserve it. Right. And usually a manufacturer is not going to send me something that's just terrible. So I can't imagine that Magico and Wilson, like their speakers are terrible. I've seen some of their measurements and they look good. So
I can imagine Wilson's being terrible.
They're very bassy.
Yeah, well, I've seen some of their results, like the huge Chronosonics. I'm not holding a lot of hope for those, but the smaller ones, I've heard them and they were fine. I just think, I think what you pay with with Wilson, at least their lower level stuff is good overall sound, and it probably could even sound great. I don't know about that, but you're also paying for looks, right? But that's with anything in this hobby. As I said earlier, once you get out of like the $500 to $1,000 price bracket for bookshelf speakers, you get to like $1,000 to $1,500, you're going back in performance, but you're going way up in overall aesthetic, right? So you're hitting that price point somewhere in there where you get the performance and the looks, and it's not cheap.
Right.
Someone in chat says Wilsons are so big and expensive, you just know they have to be kind of bad. And honestly, that
The thing
theme
is,
kinda...
I don't know. Like going to a lot of those like audio shows, like at Munich High End, they have tons of different Wilson speakers set up there,
Yeah.
and oftentimes those rooms actually sound the best, and it's not necessarily because the Wilsons are the best, but it's because everything else is so esoteric and weird.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well,
for
yeah, I mean, if
sure.
you compare it to those abominations with the multiple weird freestanding horns and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Those things
it's
are
just
wild.
it's
Yeah, those things just don't make
yeah.
any sense. But yeah, some of the bigger Wilsons I've heard, because there's a store a couple hours from me that they have all of the Wilson speakers. I mean, maybe they don't have like 2 models or something, but I've
Yeah.
heard the lower end, the really high end ones, and I like the lower ones. I think they're good. The high end ones, I'm like, I can't get over the looks, so I can't just ignore what I'm seeing. So I'm
Sure.
like, oh, this is not cool.
So you need the speaker shuffler.
I'd
You
need
should
the
ask
speaker
if
shuffler for
Sean will
sure.
let you borrow it.
For sure, for sure. But yeah, I sidetracked myself there, but I think I was just trying to go more to the point that I think because I have an objective lean, that there are manufacturers who are hesitant to send me anything.
Mhm.
And I also don't provide manufacturers with results unless they send me something and I'm like, this thing seems broken and this isn't right. You know, like then I'm like, well, I'm not going to review it because that's not cool. Like if stuff happens, I've had stuff show up in shipping that's just been busted. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to do a review of it and blast the company because shipping just destroyed it, you know? That's not cool.
Yeah.
I have one nuance on this one because this
Okay.
is one where I completely agree with you. With the caveat, I think that if an end user sent you something and it wasn't shipping damaged, but it's how it got to them, even if it's out of spec, if it's something that somebody owns, it's
Mhm.
fair game to review.
Out of
Like if the
spec would be
manufacturer wants to
fine.
say that's out of spec, then
Yeah.
they can say that and they can fix it for that person.
Yeah, I agree.
But
With that said, I have had my line on that is that I don't want to review non-production stuff because I have had manufacturers send me stuff that's like pre-production and it's been like a demo unit, but it's
Yeah.
not been to the same standard, not the same spec that they have for production. So when I get it
are
in,
we
and I'm like,
still
oh, this,
talking about this dust? You're never gonna get over that, are you?
Well, it's
I
not
mean,
just the
I
sub.
didn't
But I had
review
that
that
happen to
one.
me.
It's not
I had
just
that
that
happen
one.
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's happened to me with multiple different units where it's like they
It's
send
annoying.
or like
It is
the
annoying.
yeah, the original
Why
full
even
cal-
send it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I found that out after the fact. Somebody sent me something and they were like, we're going for this launch date. And I was like, cool, I can do that, you know, and at some point we are just a marketing extension for a lot of these companies. And I'm okay with that because my audience wants to see these things. So, you know, I don't feel like I'm being used in that regard. It's cool. But yeah, it's frustrating when they send you something and then they're like, oh, and by the way, this was a pre-production sample and we're going to change this. And I'm like, why the hell did I spend all of this time? I did all like, you know, like, come on, guys.
Now
I don't like
the
that.
Mark Levins in 5909 was like that for me as well. But to their credit, they weren't asking for a review. They were just asking for feedback. It's just
Oh,
that,
that's cool.
yeah. But it sucked because then they were like, yeah, we're doing a firmware update. And I didn't actually get a review unit until like way later. I was like, well, I can't review it. So,
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I think that brings us to the next topic, which is, do you have any concrete opinion of the existing speaker targets out there that are popular? Are there any that you use yourself or recommend to others?
Oh, this is one that I think I go against not the entire audio community, but I go against a lot of the audio community. There should be
Interesting.
no generic target curve. There should be no, let me say this again. There should be no generic target curve. Everybody, I hope you're listening. The speaker drives the target curve.
So we've been beating that drum for quite a while.
Dude, I learned this in car audio. Like in the easiest example that I can give anybody, and again, I'm going back to car audio, where there was a period of time where full range speakers were all the rage, and for good reason. In car audio, space is a premium, so you may not have the space to put a tweeter and a mid range somewhere nearby. And if you can't do that, then some people would default to trying to find a good full range that had good on and off axis response. So I'll say that with the caveat that most full range drive units are terrible. Like most of them are terrible because they have a lot of cone breakup or other things going on that the off axis is completely different tonally than the on axis. But let's say you have a good full range unit and a 4-inch full range unit is going to beam like, let's ballpark 3000 hertz or so. So that means at 3000 hertz, it starts to narrow up, and by 10 kilohertz, it's like super narrow.
It's a laser beam.
Yeah, if you try to hit the same target curve with that speaker as you did a tweeter system, you're doing it wrong, because that tweeter is going to have a wider radiation, and like it may go out to 60 degrees at 10 kilohertz, and that full range driver might be 30 degrees, right? So there's a lot more treble naturally because the dome tweeter is radiating broader, so there's more reflections off the sidewalls or in the car. So you're going to have a lift in that treble naturally, and it probably sounds fine. But if you go and take that 3-inch where it's like rolling off because there's less reflections, and you bring that up, it's going to sound like dog shit. Like that's going to be terrible. So you can take that exact same thing and you can apply it to car audio, and you can apply it to headphone, or not car audio, home audio, and you can apply it to headphones. It's the same thing. If you try to make one speaker sound just like another and you don't understand what you're doing, it's probably going to sound really bad.
Yeah. All right, so let's probably reframe this. Imagine that you have a good speaker, so a speaker that has fairly constant or constantly rising DI, that has, the bandwidth at both the low and the high end.
Yeah.
Do you think that an in-room target is a sensible concept at all?
So I still don't believe that a generic target curve is what you should do for in-room. I think what you should do for in-room is you can either look at the data that's out there if it exists, and that would be ideal, or did y'all hear that?
I heard
Just a little
something.
bit.
Yeah, my kid's battling some friends online, so I'm just like, dude, is she alive at this point? I don't even know. We'll go check on her. Sorry, I got sidetracked. I do that. So if you have the data from like the Clipple near field scan or something, you can predict the estimated in-room response. That works. Or you just measure the in-room response. And what I do is I just look for trends, right? Like, what's the general slope of this speaker? And are the deviations that are in there because of the room, maybe, or are they because of the speaker? Most likely above like 400 or 500 hertz, the speaker is what you get the result of in your in-room measurement. Below that, it's the room, because the room's really dominating more, lower frequencies, longer wavelengths, things like that. So my simple answer is see what the speaker's doing in the room, and then draw a target curve if you want to try to make that a little bit more neutral through that region. But don't take a speaker that's doing this and force it to do that, like lift it up, or force it to do like that. I think that's the wrong way. You bought the wrong speaker if you're trying to do that. Buy a different speaker that naturally hits that target, if that's what you're going for.
Right.
I think that answers that.
Cool. Okay, so the next question is, in your opinion, because in many ways they can kind of affect the same areas and make differences in the same problem regions.
Can they now?
If I'm spending money, should I buy more subwoofers first, or should I buy more room treatment first?
You should always buy more subwoofers. No,
good take. It's the take I expected, but I'm glad to hear this take.
More subwoofers, the better. So my thing about room treatment is that you treat the room and not the speaker, unless the speaker has an issue, and then you can treat the room for that speaker. But they're really two separate things. The problem is figuring out how do you treat the room. So you need measurements to understand how you're going to treat the room. A broadband base absorption might work, but probably doesn't. And the other thing too is, and the home theater guys know this, like this is no big deal to them. If you're listening from a single position, you can use EQ and you can dial in, you can change, like if you got large peaks or something like that, you can fix that via EQ. You can't fix a dip via EQ. You can use room treatment for that. But if you are having a lot of friends over and you're trying to all have a similar tonal balance, then you're going to have to use positioning and room treatments and some DSP as well. But DSP alone won't fix an issue for multiple seats. It only fixes it for really one primary seat.
The problem is having friends over. That's
that's why I don't have friends. Yeah. Like, I mean, you guys, but y'all are the closest thing I've got, and I've never even met you guys. So,
oh my god,
yeah, but y'all seem all right. You know, you're better than the other losers that I hang out with on Tuesday night.
You should come
shout
to
out to the Tuesday night.
That's
crew.
The actual shout out to Tuesday night group. That's the actual appeal of Can Jam, though. Is it's like 5% headphones, 95% just a bunch of audio nerds who know each other shooting the shit.
Yeah, that's what car audio events are like that, man. I used to host car audio events at my house, like in 2007, 8, 9, 10, and I would have like 40 people show up. One dude flew a helicopter in to like my local airport, and then got a rental. Yeah, he flew a helicopter from Arkansas or something. That was ridiculous.
Flex.
But yeah, that's my favorite part. And this real quick plug: if anybody's near the Huntsville, Alabama area, we're doing an event at AVIQ on January 25th. Check my Facebook or my YouTube community page and stay there for more information. But yeah, I agree. If I went to a can jam, I could just imagine myself like everybody sitting there with the headphones on, and I'd just be walking around like pop, 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 and then like, hey, did you see he ran away? I don't know.
So
that actually does happen from time.
That would
to
be
time,
good
and it's
content,
not always
actually.
me.
Film this guy.
Yeah.
Joel
Okay,
in chat asks, so would it be fair to say that your take is flat on axis, let the off axis stuff do its thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're assuming anechoic though, because you got to remember that once you put the speaker in a room,
Yeah.
You don't want flat.
Believe me, Joel knows.
Yeah, you don't want
Yeah.
flat response in the room. Like, yeah. For anybody who's listening and doesn't understand that, yeah, you definitely. I see like other reviewers who are trying to get their measurement game up, and they're like, "Oh, it measures flat," and I'm like, "Oh, then that means it's super bright." You still don't understand this, you know? But yeah, I would say flat on axis and smooth off axis. But that's what Dr. Tool says says too. So, and then the deviation there is just, like how quickly is that speaker falling off axis, right? Like how, and that's how narrow is the radiation or how broad is the radiation. Some people like a speaker that has a really wide radiation pattern. Some people like a narrow one. So, and some of that is in a room with reflected walls and without reflection walls, so but that's why you need to know what the data looks like, and you can make an educated decision. Hey, I like this sound. This is what my speaker's doing in this room. Let me see if I can find something that's close to it, but also gives me this aspect that I'm missing,
I don't think it needs to tilt that much. My Revels don't tilt that much in room, and I quite like how they sound.
Yeah, I'm probably with you there. I tend to find that I like a speaker that's like plus or minus 60 degrees in radiation pattern at the -6 dB point. So to me, that's the sweet spot. That's enough interaction with the room to provide envelopment, but then also it doesn't lose a lot of focus in imaging, because I've reviewed a lot of speakers that are pretty wide, like ribbon tweeters and stuff. Usually they're pretty wide through the mid-range, like maybe plus or minus 70, 80, maybe even 90. I've seen some that are really wide. And what I've tended to find with those is that there's so much reflection in the room that you lose imaging. It's more diffuse, but it's always a fine line, man. Like plus or minus 5 degrees probably isn't a big deal. Plus or minus 10 degrees might be, but that's where the data really helps you have a better understanding.
For sure.
Blaine, do you use subwoofers? I forget what your setup is.
So my setup right now is just a pair of the cheapest 325 Bs that have ever been sold.
328 Bs.
328 Bs. But no, I actually am thinking about setting up some subs, because down at like 30 hertz, they're rolling off a bit. I mean, like the room has been fairly kind to them, but I would like a little bit more.
Yeah, because you're famously a bass head.
I mean, no. They're making fun of me because, so you know how Sean Olive is a collaborator of Floyd Tools?
Yeah.
In his headphone, when he does presentations on headphones, he quantified that there were groups of people who like less bass. He uses my picture as the reference for someone who doesn't like enough bass.
That's the best part.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
At least you're known for something cool.
For not liking bass.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool for you, not anybody else. Yeah. So, wrong with you, man? Like, what happened to you as a child that you don't like bass?
Well, so no, the thing is, the genres that I listen to are not very bass centric. Like that's ultimately it. Like, acoustic folk is my single favorite genre, and that's one where you can do a high pass of 50 hertz and almost nothing changes.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, why get subs if you're getting roll off at 30 hertz?
Because
I have the same question.
Only thing I listen to.
Okay, so I have this same sort of like thought process, because like, so I have the KEF LS50 wireless 2s I purchased from Erin's review actually was what sold me on it.
Purchased
But
at headphones.com, a certified KEF dealer.
also true.
Hey.
And I also did hear them because I went and visited KEF, so I got to actually listen to them. I listened to the Blade and the LS60 and all
I
that
saw
stuff
that
that they had.
video.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun to go check that out. But in your review of the LS50s, the roll off is at like 50 hertz, roughly. So 50, 60 hertz, something like that. And so I'm thinking, like, well, okay, like a subwoofer would be nice, but like, do I really need? Like, what do I really need that for this?
Yeah.
And like the answer is probably yes, but how much do I need? I live in a small apartment. Like,
he's trying to
I don't
talk
know.
himself into buying a sub, but because he doesn't want to DIY it, it's going to end up being something weird. I'm probably just going to build some and put them under my couch.
Yeah, I don't have proper chairs. I don't have proper furniture.
Yes, we know you don't have chairs, you don't have a couch, you don't have furniture.
I live in a hovel.
He has a love seat, which he insists is not a couch, and supposedly owns no chairs.
This is true.
You just sit on left
Regardless of the fact that he is currently sitting in a chair.
This is why I mean, yeah, like this is the only chair, but that's why headphones, man. Like small apartment,
I hear you.
but
I just picture you as Dalsim from Street Fighter, just like levitating and
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody else will get that reference.
Yeah,
You wouldn't picture him like that if you had actually seen his footwork in person.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means.
Look at you catching strays, man.
This is what I do. But no, like actually, I saw your review of the KC62 and KC92, and that seems like a good.
Yeah,
maybe the small
a good
one,
option.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even recall like how low it gets, but I'd be surprised if it got much below like 40 hertz with some kind of appreciable volume. But it might get lower down into 30s. I really don't.
I don't
remember.
listen very loud, so
I feel like down to
Yeah.
40 is really where I would say you need a subwoofer. Once you go below that, I don't know. That like
Yeah.
first octave doesn't seem entirely necessary to me.
Yeah, I usually say like in my videos that if you're trying to get by without using a subwoofer, find a speaker that has like an F3 around 40 because it can get down to mid 40s, lower 40s in room, and you're probably okay for most genres of music.
yeah.
But if you find that you listen to maybe music like EDM or rap or something that has a lot of lower bass, then you're probably going to need something that gets you below 40 hertz, and you'll have to add a subwoofer then.
And that's why Blaine needs a subwoofer. It's for those times when he's listening to EDM.
Yeah,
For all of the
I listen to plenty of EDM.
Russa music.
or Taylor
Okay,
Swift.
I do listen to some
While
music.
dancing. I assume he's dancing.
I
How do you dance?
actually to this day have never knowingly heard a Taylor Swift song.
Do you do the
Me
running
neither.
man? Hey, do you have like Alexa or something like that? Is that what you listen through, or
I use Spotify primarily. Just
okay.
Spotify off of I have an NVIDIA Shield set up as like a home theater control thing.
Oh, you want to see something really funny? Have you guys ever done this? Watch this. Hey Alexa, play NSYNC's "Bye Bye Bye."
Are you trolling our viewers?
Watch your
Instantly.
comment section.
That's not going to work
Demonetized.
for our viewers because
What
our
are
viewers all
headphones?
use
They're
headphones. See, that's the thing. You have to come up with different tricks for the headphone people.
Unless it was like open backs maybe, and it's like
They would have to be cranking it.
We've done it on the Daily Hi-Fi a couple times, and it's hilarious because the comment section will be like, "Come on, man!"
It's a good song. It's not like you're trolling them with bad
I
music.
think that this is a really interesting revelation about the demographic differences of our watchers.
Yeah,
I
didn't even
can't
think about that.
I think most of our viewers, and I'm one of them in this case, couldn't imagine putting a podcast on speakers. Apparently one guy was, though. So you got
There you
one
go.
guy.
Nice.
Oh, it didn't work.
Oh, man, that sucks. I quit. I'm out. That's the only
Right.
reason I'm here. I was just trying to bait y'all.
But we're
right.
just going to get to the part that I was excited about.
yeah. Now we
No,
got to get
We're gonna go there now.
controversial one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So Aaron,
Getting ready to put my trucker hat on.
you're doing some sound demos.
Oh yeah. Yep.
We would like to talk about that.
Oh. All right.
Specifically, Blaine would like to talk about that.
All right, man.
Blaine would like to fight about that.
Tell me what I haven't heard.
Okay, so currently, I've watched your most recent video on this, and your current plan, stop me if I'm wrong here, is you're going to provide recordings that have been convolved with the free field on Axis response, provide recordings that have been like a version of that that's been EQ'd based on predicted in room,
Yeah.
and possibly also something to do with pink noise. I didn't actually quite remember how that part went.
Yeah. It's convolved on axis, EQ, estimated in room is what I think I'm going to do. Then you've got the media that you use. So either pink noise or a song. And I'm leaning toward pink noise, but it might be a song. Go ahead.
I have an alternative proposal.
Oh God. I don't want to. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me first ask you, what do you imagine that your audience are listening to these on, right? Like if they're playing this back.
Dude, it's everything. It's phones to high-end systems. It's everything.
But you're assuming speakers, right?
No, I'm honestly not. I'm assuming, well, a loudspeaker of some sort. I see what you're saying. Compared to headphones.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is a solution though, and there is an almost perfect solution if they wear headphones. So if you've read any of Sean's papers, huh?
You want me to convolve it with an HRTF or something?
No, I want you to do binaural room scanning. And this is something that Sean published a few papers on in like the aughts. So that's literally just doing a binaural impulse response for each channel with a mannequin, right? With something that has ears and microphones at the ear entrance or eardrum positions. And then you just, whether you convolve it or do some other EQ, you do an EQ that subtracts your intended headphones response on that mannequin, and then you have something that approximates being in your room listening to that speaker. And the best part about it is that they can even do it with their music, because you could just give them the impulse responses.
Yeah.
What would you subtract? What would be the
thereby hangs the problem.
Yeah.
Now my suggestion is that he gets branded Erin's Audio Corner replicator headphones and sells them.
Oh God, no, I can't.
You don't like that idea?
I don't want to be a salesman. I'm actually trying to get further away.
No. You would just use them. We would sell them.
Oh, hold on a second. That wasn't part of my pitch.
Yeah, I got it now. It makes sense now.
No, you're corrupting my pitch. I just wanted him to be indulging in capitalism, not us.
Okay.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah. So so in serious, there's a few ways you could skin that cat. One would just be picking a commonly available cheap headphone, like something that people could reasonably get for, like, it wouldn't be unreasonable for someone to pay $50 or $100 for a headphone to listen to a sound demo.
Right.
Could be, something like a HD 5819 or a
but it is
whatever.
There is like you're saying, like you would actually suggest that in order for people to actually understand or get maximum utility out of these sound demos, you would need them to purchase this headphone.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's just sort of inevitable, right? Like the problem, and Erin, because Erin is a smart person, references this in his videos. If you're playing something back over another speaker, you are hearing the traits of both the recorded sound and of the speaker that you're playing back on. The big problem with this from perspective of speaker demos, though, is the off-axis sound, right? Because you can affect the timbre of the direct sound via your convolution thing, but you'll never replicate with a speaker. Wait, someone in chat is... Oh, wait, never mind. I thought for a second someone was accusing me of trying to patent one of Sean's things, but no, it's just some weirdo I know. Oh. Anyway, no, but so you'll never be able to replicate the sound in the room because it's the sum of the delayed off axis, yada, yada. But you can do that with headphones, right? Because headphones have no off axis. They have no delayed sound. So you can basically put someone in an auditory environment of your choosing.
Right.
So what's the, apart from trying to be more precise, why wouldn't you just say this is calibrated for a commonly available headphone that people happen to have or are likely to have, like a 6XX? I mean, I know that's more expensive, but like,
well, I mean, yeah,
as an example, MDR 7506 or something, right?
Like that's what I'm saying. Just pick a headphone.
Oh, you're not saying to actually, like, they need this specific one. You're just saying,
yeah, I mean, people will inevitably misuse this, but the thing is that headphones are consistent enough that you can get closer with a headphone than you can with them playing it back over speakers by a pretty large margin.
Once you're at that stage of like calibrating the result for one headphone, couldn't you then also do this in a way that that we've suggested in the past, even for headphone sound demos, is take whatever is an average response and calibrate for that? right?
Well, the problem there is, and
You're-
of course you know this, headphones vary quite a bit.
They do, but what if you like? There is that thing though.
Okay,
where you're
so
like, okay, there's like a
I'd like you to sidecar this one, because this is a you bugbear, but I'd like to focus on Erin here.
I
who I'm
much
attempting
prefer
to
I
paint
much
into a
prefer the
corner.
previous suggestion though of like making it a specific one, because then you can just say, all right, well, if you don't have this one, it's not going to be as indicative. But if you have this one or one like it, then this is a good representation of the sound.
Also, use my referral code with Brew and KR.
By the way, would you suggest a 5128 for this?
No.
Okay, what would you suggest?
No. Like let Erin speak, for God's sake.
Okay.
I would suggest the one that I can make the most money off of, like whichever one has the most margin. That's what I would suggest. So I don't know which one that is, but and not percentage either. I'm talking dollar amounts, like absolute, not relative.
Real
Reasonable.
I need real money. No, so I've thought of that. I even talked to Sean about this like 2 or so years ago, trying to get some ideas about it. The issue that I would have to depend on my audience to go out and buy this headphone, and then otherwise say, and if you don't have it, then understand this. Well, then I'm right back to where I am right now. If you don't have,
You're not
this
quite
thing,
to
then
where you
gotta
are
do
right
this.
now, though. Because
Well,
right now there's no one who will ever hear it as it is.
no, but that's also not my point. So my point is I don't want to replicate what I'm hearing in my room through those speakers. What I'm trying to do is to say, here's the relative difference. So you've got the original, now you've got this. Listen for the change in sound, and now let's use that to look at the data and help you understand why, right? And I could also just say, hell, here's an EQ. I'm just going to start EQ and stuff. You hear this change, cool. That's what that sounds like. But my hope is that it brings the data closer to, not directly, but closer to what you're hearing.
How do you think that people are? So I get the aspirational element of this to get people more engaged with the data, right? Like you just said. But do you worry that there are people who are just gonna like only use that section? Like I was watching your Kef comparison video with the sound demos. Do you worry that there's like people who that's all they get from it? And I'd be curious what the analytics look like on that video, right? If it's people who are just skipping to the sound demo and not watching any of the rest of it.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. I will say this blanketly, I worry about everything. I always worry that somebody's going to take the wrong thing out of what I say. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I will say something in a video and then turn right back around and take devil's advocate position. And then sometimes I'll delete it from the video because I'm like, I don't care anymore. And then other times I'll leave it. Like, dude, it's so hard to capture every single complaint.
It is.
And it's mind numbing. It's like I'm trying to do everything that I can possibly think of in the best possible way that I can think of. And it may be different 6 months down the line. Like I did this 2 or 3 years ago. I did a convolution with like the Klipsch Heresy 4 because that speaker was so bad. And I was like, you guys got to hear just how terrible this speaker is. And I think it served the purpose. But then I just quit doing it because I was like, I don't know if I like doing this or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look at that.
My sales pitch will continue here. I have a man on the ground nearby to you. His name is Douglas.
I'm aware. Yes.
I would like him to bring his hats over to your place. You can do some BRIRs, you can do some binaural recordings, and you can have a listen on a couple of different headphones. And I think that you will be sold on my pitch here. And use my referral code at Brew and KR.
Well,
yeah, you say that as if you have one.
I do not, sadly. They didn't even give me a fucking discount.
But we have a contact. We could probably, figure out a referral code. Affiliate links for B&Ks.
We should have affiliate links with B&Ks. We've directly caused at least 2 different ones to sell.
And those are pricey boys. But
we don't. Just for the record, we actually don't. But I would be totally open if Vince wants to contact me.
Yeah.
Get on that ASAP. I'm not completely opposed to it. I think what I want to do for now is to see how this goes and see what that kind of feedback is and see if the point I'm trying to make is made, or if I find that I have to keep explaining the same thing over and over. And then if I do, then I'll see if I need to go another route or just scrap the idea altogether.
I mean, there is a benefit that relates to like one of the things that Blaine's pushed for us to do sound demos, and the headphone community is typically anti. Like we don't like sound demos much, right?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who say, well, it doesn't actually sound like that, right?
It's not supposed to though. Yeah, yeah.
Right. But so like
Right.
there's like you're misleading people, right? But one
Yeah.
of the benefits that would be there, but also certainly in speaker sound demos and comparative ones like the ones you've done, is for a lot of people who have no sense of like no idea what the data actually says. Like they don't understand that at all. At
Right.
least the sound demo provides an experiential on-ramp to some of that content.
Mhm.
And I imagine that's the kind of thing that you're trying to do with this, right?
That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Get people, yeah.
I'm
Well,
trying to
and
get
keep people from
en-
buying bad products, right?
Yeah, at the very
Exactly.
least.
I'm trying to
there's
get people engaged and really to understand. Like when I say this and I show you this, this is what I'm talking about. You know, like you can hear those kind of differences. So, like especially when it's the tweeter is just blaring.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you hear that? That's what I mean when I say bright. You can call it whatever you want, but this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I do think that there is something that is, well, I mean, like obviously you're trying to do this with the in-room thing, but
Yeah.
I think that there's an additional sort of merit here of showing how a speaker interacts with a specific room, which is something that people will not intuit, and people can't intuit, right? Like until you've heard speakers in different rooms, it's very hard to sort of intuitively say, oh, well, that's what a speaker like this sounds like in a very, very live room, a room with a lot of immediate reflections or a room with a lot of delayed reflections. So there's
Nobody's doing that difference. Like
well,
nobody
yeah,
is
I mean,
like comparing that.
yeah, but nobody is comparing that. But what I'm saying is that makes a speaker bad sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes like what's one of the many things that makes like the speakers you got today, the NS10s, bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to
And
Oh,
you
I'm
see-
so very much looking
It's the
forward to that review.
NS10M, right?
Yeah. And they actually came from a Nashville recording studio. Because I've got friends. So and immediately people are going to be like, no way, that's the grass. Listen, moron. These came from a studio. From a fucking engineer friend who gave them to
Yeah.
me to review. Sorry for my language. I don't get
No.
No, it's
Yeah,
okay.
no,
Try to keep
please,
mine to a
please.
minimum.
That's a good sentiment, and it should be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to keep my language to a minimum in case my daughter wants to show her friend her dad is a super nerd. But anyway, yeah, I'm very passionate about this stuff. Like some of the
I
people
think
that say things, I'm just like, I wish we could talk in person. I'm not threatening violence because I'm not going to jail. But I'm saying,
I'm
like,
not
really
threatening him.
wish
I just
could
want to
tell
talk to
you what
him.
I really think.
Can we talk outside,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been in my fair share of fights. I don't want to do those anymore. I'm too old. My back hurts too much. But I'm happy to have a verbal altercation. That's fine.
Yeah.
Too old to be swinging. I like swing, my back goes out. I'm like, oh, I'm done.
This is why you're cooler than we are.
Out of curiosity,
Because I'm willing to
did
get beat
you-
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's happened. I got in a fight with a dude with a steel plate in his head, and I lost that fight. Let me tell you. So
It's classic error.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Just on that Kef sound demo video that you did,
Yeah,
one of the things that you were saying in it was like, this is the reason why some people don't like or say they don't like and
right.
these speakers. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the takeaways was they might be used to something brighter, right?
Yeah,
Or something.
exactly.
Yeah. Did you get any backlash from people who've heard the Kefs and didn't like them?
I don't think I really got any backlash.
Interesting.
I think I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff in there, but it's in the noise, right?
Of course.
I think for the most part, the sentiment was like people understood what I was trying to convey, and they were like, "Oh, okay, I get it. It makes sense." I still like this other speaker more, or I still like blah blah blah. But
right. Well, that's what I'm wondering is like, is there some like coming to the table or a common ground that's been able to come about as a result of approaching it that way, where it's like it may from people, for example, who don't like the speakers don't like them, they can at least see where you're coming from, right?
Yeah.
They can start to understand that a little bit better as well.
yeah, I've gotten a few comments like that, like, "Oh, I appreciate this because now I understand, why
Yeah.
I didn't," or like, "Yeah, I see, like this sounds like this, and this other one sounds like this, and that's why I didn't like it."
Yeah.
Okay, cool, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the sound demos are instructive for that. I think they can be very helpful in that regard.
Yeah, there's no there's no perfect way to do this, because even if I said I'm gonna fly you to my house and put you in my room, well, what happens when I put you out in the field? You know, what happens when I put you in a larger demo room at a store that doesn't have sidewalls? Different sound now. You know, so there's like no way. But I will say, name drop. I got an email from Dr. Floyd Toole, and he said
Whoa.
he liked that video. He said he wished I'd spent a little bit more time on the spinorama data, because my focus is more on the estimated in-room response. But he liked what I was trying to do, and I said, dude, if I can get a sign off from Floyd Toole on what I'm trying to do, like, everybody else can kiss my butt.
This is how we feel whenever Sean says something nice.
Right? Yeah, you're like, okay, cool. I'm doing, like, I caught the attention of somebody who I respect in this industry, so that's cool. But that email is also part of the reason why I'm like, well, I'll do both. I'll do the on axis and I'll do the estimated in response, and I've considered it already, but that just kind of kicked it into that gear. So, yeah,
cool. I don't have anything else.
I want to drop a little non-sponsored recommendation, but the 4th edition of Floyd Toole's sound reproduction is coming soon, so everyone be sure to get that on Amazon when it drops.
Did
It's gonna be an excellent book.
Did you add did you email Sean about your contribution there, Blaine?
My contribution?
Or about Sean's contribution? Sean wanted our input on his section.
Oh yeah, I sent him the data.
Oh, okay.
He didn't, like, I haven't seen his version yet, though. Like, you didn't CC me if there was anything where he sent
No, he just emailed me a while ago asking for our preference bound stuff.
Yeah, no, I sent him the stuff.
Okay, cool.
Headphones.com content will be featured as a citation.
Hopefully.
that's pretty cool, ain't it?
Well, no, he told me that the
did he?
DF article is getting cited.
Oh, okay.
Look at us, man. We're all going to be up in that book.
Yeah,
that's right.
We made it.
Yeah,
made it. Yeah, I got a couple of little, I don't want to say shout outs, but references in Vance Dickinson's loudspeaker cookbook.
Oh, that's sick.
Version from last year. Yeah, I mean, he referenced mine and other people too, but I was just like, dude. So I asked him if he would send me an autographed copy, and he did.
Oh,
like,
cool.
So I'm gonna see if I can get Floyd to do that with this new version too.
Very cool.
Oh man, we should 100% do that with Sean.
I'm going to message Sean right now and say, hey, these guys at Headphone Show are going to ask you to say, don't sign it. Or sign it, be like, Aaron Hardison is way cooler than you guys.
The thing is, like,
he'll sign
Sean
Aaron
is
Hardison for Aaron
definitely
Hardison.
a jokester. Sean is a jokester, and he'll be like, oh yeah, definitely. And then he won't sign it. He'll be like, this reliable guy hit me up on
God.
that I should.
Yeah, I can just hear his dry comment there. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, love that guy.
We do have a.
I've still got time if y'all had other ones. I'm not necessarily.
Well, before we plow forward in ours, you said you had some. You mentioned one of the things that you had that you were wanting to talk about on here, but did you have any other things you want to talk about?
I don't even remember what I said I wanted to talk about. So
it was about the funding for YouTube stuff, but that was just basically if you had any other topics before we proceeded to our.
No, I don't really have any. Honestly, I'm just here to hang out, man. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. I just, I like what you guys do, and I wanted to come on and hang out with you.
We spring things on people. That's sort of it's our base.
That's okay, man. It gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
With that, we proceed to Fight Club.
Yeah. Nobody talks about Fight Club.
Well, that's what we do. So the topic is: are speakers objectively better than headphones?
Oh, 100%.
I don't think we actually have anything. Okay,
I'll fight you on that.
1,000%. They are so much better. Headphones are the worst thing ever. They should only be used on airplanes to block out crying babies. Any other reason, there's just no point.
I appreciate having someone else provocative on.
What if I don't want my bass to have massive peaks and dips?
Ooh.
But your ears.
This is the correct way to respond to listener.
Oh my god, my stomach hurts.
Think you're better than me? Huh? No. Honestly, in all seriousness, I think headphones may be objectively better than loudspeakers. I mean, you just take the room out of the equation, right? The only complaint I have about headphones is that I don't have that spaciousness that I want, like that. But that's a sensory thing, right?
The only way in which I would say headphones are objectively better is that I don't have to be as embarrassed by my music,
And you should be embarrassed by your music.
Exactly. Well, okay.
Andrew going with the weeb answer. Interesting.
I mean, it's not weeb music though. It's like jazz.
I know, it's just the
You like
justification I
jazz?
often seen used by weebs.
Oh, okay. It's the weeb
No, no.
jazz crossover.
Oh,
So-
that's a. Do you guys get flack for like when you mention I listen to blah 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 and then I blah blah blah? Do you get
Yeah.
like
All the
you
time.
you should be listening to better music?
All the time.
They don't, because I'm a lightning rod.
Yeah.
I am the only one who gets flack for what I
Oh, no, I
listen
get it.
to,
I get it.
because
People-
what I
people
listen
criticize.
to is
They
so much
say-
worse.
They
I
say my
don't.
favorite genre is jazz, my favorite drink is water, and then my favorite car is a Toyota Camry. All of which is
All
true.
of those are true. That's not
Okay.
flack.
Well, except and my favorite headphones is in the HD 600 video where I was saying it was a good headphone, right? And they're like, oh, like you can't trust him because he likes these boring things. But it's not true. The water thing is not true. I like a
Yes,
good
your
whiskey.
favorite drink is wine.
Whiskey.
Really?
I'm a big fan of the Japanese whiskeys. They do good stuff.
Mm.
Ah, the Nika whiskey
It
from
all,
the
it
barrel.
all makes
Yeah.
sense now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I
well,
get
wait.
those kind of comments like, well, you need to, I get emails from people, just unsolicited emails like, you should be listening to the blah blah blah. Like, why are you listening to blah blah blah? And I'm like, dude, like the same people, these same freaking people who will say like, well, measurements don't matter. It only matters what you hear, and you should enjoy music first, and blah blah. Those are the same people who email me and say you're listening to the wrong music.
Oh man,
Dude.
I just had this happen on social media, which obviously talking there is always a mistake. But someone was like, man, you'll never hear the best from the HD800 unless you put it on a fancy amplifier. And I was like, well, it sounds basically the same to me. I've listened to my HD800, which I've listened to a lot on a lot of amplifiers. And they're like, well, you should get better ears or get better music or something like that. And I was like, okay, so what is personal experience not sacrosanct anymore when it's not yours?
No, it's not. Yeah,
So
that's frustrating.
what's the case, and maybe this is also for Blaine, right? Like, what would you guys say to answer the question of which is objectively better, headphones or speakers?
Well, it depends on what the criteria are, right? Like if your goal is
Objectively, like that's
I'll skin you. I'll skin you.
Alive.
he will. He has
But-
the knives for it.
That's not a
No,
knife.
but
Yeah.
no, but
And the
really,
hat.
it depends. It depends on the criteria that
Let
we
this
care
man
about,
talk.
right? If your criteria is, can I just plonk someone down in front of this or with this on them, and they're, for the best example I can find, they're going to have a better time, it's going to be speakers, right? Like that's very likely that the best speakers in this good room, yada yada, modal response managed properly, yada yada, are going to have a more positive response from the average listener than the best headphone. Comma, there's a lot of areas where headphones beat speakers. Obviously, their distortion is vastly lower.
Mhm.
They do not suffer from any of the issues of managing room modes, but there are also areas where they completely fall flat on their faces because speakers are what people use to make music, and so music reproduced via headphones, which doesn't have off-axis and reflected and delayed sound, literally does not sound as it is meant to, and often sounds objectively worse. And headphones bypass your own physical anatomy, so the reality of the experience is often very negatively impacted.
And you're not being primed by any other location-based cues with headphones.
This
The
is
way you
true,
are
although I
with
will
speakers.
point out that a stereo pair is still pretty fucked. Like, really, in an ideal world, people would be running at least 3.x just because the center channel is
Right.
quite relevant for that exact reason.
Yeah.
But they don't. Nobody will, because
Yeah.
we have televisions or fireplaces or whatever in the space. Like,
We look
even
at
I
things.
don't.
You don't just like look at the potential third channel. Just nothing there.
I mean, I like how my speakers look, but my fireplace would have melted them. So I'm gonna get 3.
Fair.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm just thinking when the question is posed, I immediately think of like all the room issues you have to deal with speakers, like all the freaking room issues. And that really muddies
And
up
we
the
immediately think of all the HPTF
HPF,
issues we
yeah,
have with
yeah,
headphones.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
just my glasses have broken the seal, so now I
Yeah.
don't have bass.
Well, and
Yeah.
and I mean, like the issues with IEMs are like an even further, like deeper problem of like
Like,
breaking
if
the
anything,
system of the ear.
if we are comparing the two, the room BS that happens with speakers is happening in a much comparatively smaller range of the frequency response than it is with
and
headphones.
it's also
if
a
we
problem.
count the HPTF as a very small room for headphones. And
Yeah, and it's also a problem of trying to understand and predict the way that these things behave. Where imagine, so like the analogy I'm thinking of is probably not the right analogy, but like imagine that the speakers you set up, imagine that they slightly shifted a little bit in their orientation, relative to whatever it is that you're trying to measure it with.
Right.
And for every instance, it's slightly shifted and slightly different. It gets frustrating. Plus, there's the acoustic impedance issue for closed-back headphones. There's leakage effects from glasses. It's big problems.
So basically, what we've learned here is the grass is always greener on the other side. And yet, in spite of this, Erin is still going to listen on speakers mostly, and we're still going to listen on headphones mostly, because mostly it's not actually what we think will sound the best. It's because we adopted those for lifestyle reasons.
Well, and it's also because like I live in a small apartment in Vancouver, right? Like I don't
form factor and portability are a big
consideration. Small apartment with no chairs, and his mother grew up in a fucking tin can, and he just has never in his life seen sunlight.
Why you got to bring his mom into this, man?
Yeah, no, like that part isn't true. Like I grew up in the mountains.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Wow, big difference.
It is a big difference, dude. It's so much better.
The mountains. I mean, to be fair, hell is better than downtown Vancouver.
Yes.
Well, I'm never going to Vancouver. Remind me of that.
I don't recommend. Well, there are nice places in Vancouver. It's actually a beautiful city, but it sucks. It sucks to drive there. It's an awful place to commute
there.
Yeah, just to exist there. Like it's nice to look at things, but being there is not fun. Yeah.
Y'all should come to Alabama.
Yeah.
You talk like me.
At some point we will.
Yeah.
Come on,
I'd love to. Love to.
Come on down.
I love you turning the accent up 200%.
Hey, come on down. Yeah, dude,
this is the trouble that we have.
Yeah.
I envy your accent because I just sound like a Californian no matter what, even though I'm not a fucking Californian.
Yeah.
Same thing with Andrew.
Yeah, your accent sucks, bro. You gotta step up your game on your accent.
Thing is, like, I'll
work
do.
on that, bro.
Yeah, bro.
I often get comments
Sorry
where people comment on me saying about. They're like, "Oh, you're definitely Canadian."
About.
Yeah, about.
Correct. This is a correct statement.
About.
Sorry. Darn. Anyway,
the sorry thing has started to fucking afflict me. Actually, it's a disease.
Oh, shout outs to Rob. Rob knows. Rob knows how Vancouver is.
He said Vancouver is pretty. That's the least based thing Rob has ever said.
It is a genuinely picturesque city. Do we have any more audio topics? Sorry, sidetrack.
No, I figure we can just kind of open it up if anyone has any questions for Erin in the chat.
Yeah, people have kept asking Erin questions that I've been ignoring because we had an FAQ or like a Q&A.
Yeah, let's do that.
Uh-oh.
If Erin, if you have a bit more time.
Yeah, no, my kid's acting a fool in the room, so she's not ready.
And I also wanted to ask, like we were mentioning it earlier, like of the stuff we listen to, but like do you have like preferred genres, but B also like specific test tracks?
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, so I've got like a Spotify playlist with all sorts of stuff on there, but I'm just like an 80s baby. So I love my 80s music. I love my 80s pop and hair metal, like for nostalgia.
Yeah, I can tell from the wall
Motley Crue.
Yeah, Motley Crue. Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
I grew up listening to it, so it's fun for me. Plus, man, the 80s has like some of the best recorded albums because 70s, like they were getting better equipment to record with and lower noise floor and more dynamic range out of their components. And then the 80s came in, they had good technical equipment. And then the 90s, and then like mid 90s, that was when the loudness war started coming into play. So then everything.
Yeah, that's when Rick Rubin ruined everything.
Yeah, so I'm lucky that my favorite genre of music is also well recorded. And I think it lends itself to me being able to use familiar tracks to demo different stuff with. But yeah, I've got, like I said, I've got a Spotify playlist that I use for different reviews, and I've linked it and stuff like that before. So
cool. I respect your stones for having that publicly. Even I would not have my playlist public.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like, this is what I'm using, and people, you can enjoy at least one song out of it. Cool. You don't have to.
I think your playlist is also infinitely less strange than
So Blaine's
Blaine's
would be.
likely is.
Good. Yeah, I don't listen to Teletubbies or anything like that. I mean,
I don't listen to Teletubbies.
No, but Blaine's music is troll music. Like
No, Erin
What do you
said so.
fucking
Everyone
mean?
knows now, Blaine. You
yeah,
listen to
no, I saw it earlier. That link you sent me was just the Trolls soundtrack and Teletubbies.
I have actually,
You
I
sent me
think,
things
been
that are just
recommended a
as
metal
unhinged.
version of the Teletubbies theme at some point on Spotify.
Okay.
That's
No,
not by any means the most insulting thing the algorithm has thought I'd like, though.
When Blaine listens to like when Blaine's doing his serious listening in his serious audiophile mode, it is Canadiana folk maritime stuff.
Okay.
And
Great
classical.
Big C. Great Big C is a good indication of your preferred music, right, Blaine?
I wouldn't say. I mean, yes, they're one of my favorite bands, but they're not like the. I would, if I was going to point to one of the like Canadian folk ones, I'd point to the granddaddy of it all was Stan Rogers.
Yeah,
I like the
Stan Rogers.
Dreadnoughts, who are a more contemporary one with a slightly punker sound.
The Dreadnoughts.
I like pretty much everything from the Maritimes, actually. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I'm about to look this up. I'm pretty sure that's G.I. Joe Dreadnought. Yeah, Dreadnoughts. Yeah. Sorry, I just went so like kid of the 80s. G.I. Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron, I have a somewhat random question for you. I don't know if it's ever been asked before.
It's more random than G.I. Joe.
Fair.
Okay.
Are you at all musical? Do you play any instruments?
No. I wish I did. No. Nope. But I'll say this for anybody listening, especially if you have younger children. And I tell my daughter this, and I tell my girlfriend's kids this too. Everybody that I've ever worked, I work with some incredibly intelligent people, and every one of them has had two things in common. They read a lot, and they play or did play at some point a musical instrument. So two things I never did, I wish I had done. There you go.
Got it. Yeah, it's fun. It's never too late if you ever feel like picking
I've actually thought about picking up guitar lessons, like getting me and my daughter to do them at the same time. She's been wanting to learn. She played piano for a long time. She was good at it. She had some issues with the instructor and then went through the divorce, and that kind of put a kibosh on that. So, yeah.
Piano instructors are very hit and miss.
Man, that lady was like old school, like smack you with a ruler type old school.
Damn, all right.
Guitar's more convenient.
Yeah.
Take it to more places.
Yeah.
Also, I can very much imagine Erin as a singer guitarist.
In a hair metal band, but I gotta have more hair first. So work on that.
Okay, we have a few questions in chat.
We could actually have a metal band out of this group here.
I'm not playing a metal band.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't need you. We'd have guitarists. I could probably play bass, and we'd have drummers, though.
Do you have any musical experience?
Only voice.
So Blaine is our singer. Blaine's our singer.
Oh. I feel like that makes the most sense.
See, when I told Griffin this, but when I picture Blaine singing, I picture, that Monty Python song. There's like a child that starts singing in the Monty Python song. Yeah. He just sort of, stands up and has this angelic voice.
Yeah.
Blaine is the child. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm iconically angelic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, we do actually have some questions for Erin.
I mean, I thought we'd just keep ignoring them to antagonize chat.
Erin, what kind of or what speakers do you use for movies specifically? So I guess whatever you have in your living room situation.
No, I don't. I actually don't have reference speakers because I'm always switching them out. So I just figured there's no point anymore. I came really close to buying the MoFi SourcePoint 888s, and I was intending to buy them, but that same week or week-ish, I hit a pothole, cracked a rim on my car, and I had to get new tires, and that was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. It was a whole lot of money. And I was like, I'm not buying anything right now. So yeah, I don't keep, and I probably won't have reference speakers of my own. I take that back. Actually, I just bought a pair of bookshelves that I reviewed, and they're like a DIY type kit. Oh. And I think it's like $1,200 or so US dollars for the kit, but they're really good. Audio First. And the
that's
that review.
Yeah, I bought those.
Is that the one?
The Doug Doug one?
The Doug design?
Yeah. Well, so Doug messaged me about it. I was like, I don't know, man. This dude's like an ex-Kef engineer, worked for Celestion. Like, my guess is that he probably didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
more
No,
coincidence than anything.
that's fine.
And plus,
Wait, did I miss something?
He messaged me about that too.
Wait, who messed?
There's a DIY kit speaker going around that measures very well on CEA 2034. And Doug
But it
was
was
saying
supposed to be open
it's
source.
the same thing that I think he and George worked on.
If it is, then it's something. Well, it's not the same thing they worked on, but I also was involved in that. I think it's the same drivers though. It's the ceramic
SB acoustic.
SB acoustics, right?
Yeah, it probably is. I don't know if he's using off the shelf. I'm assuming he probably is for now. But
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I assume if Gorgon, you were doing any sort of consulting on that, you just chose good drivers, and I assume anyone worth their
Oh yeah, I
salt
mean,
would also choose good drivers.
Sure.
So
yeah,
So you can.
no, yeah, no, I don't think I'd certainly imagine that there's no implication there. Like getting SB drivers is pretty much just de rigueur if you're
there's a
making.
boatload of DIY designs that use SB drivers too.
Well, it's
not
because they're affordable and they're quite good.
They're good. Yeah. Yeah. Philharmonic, I reviewed one of their speakers. They use a ceramic mid 4-inch and I think the ceramic tweeter as well. So
The ceramic
Aaron,
tweeter, I recall, caused George some trouble with mating it to a waveguide, so I'm glad that they did a good job on that one.
yeah, they did a really good job.
Aaron, how do you feel about the current state of automatic room correction? Examples given, Dirac, and how much of an improvement, if any, is something like Dirac over parametric EQ filters?
So I think Dirac probably does a way better job than the majority of people using manual EQ. Because based on my experience, which honestly is really vast, of people using manual EQ, a lot of them don't know how to use it properly, truthfully. The other thing that you really have to pay attention to is when you're going mid bass to subwoofer. So like your bookshelf speaker to your subwoofer, the phase relationship and the crossover. So you need to make sure that you have the correct phase, but most of the time people are only used to 0 180. So it's basically like polarity rather than phase.
Mhm.
And what you run into is you really need something like an all pass filter to dial in the phase between the bookshelf or the floor stand or whatever you're using and the subwoofer. So I think I'd say 80% of the people that are using manual EQ are probably not doing it as well as Dirac could, at least below the transition region for sure. Um, Dirac does a really good job. The WIM that's come out recently, which is really cool, it has built-in EQ, manual EQ, but it also has room EQ. The room EQ is not good, at least in my experience. I mean, it's all right, but it's not great. And then the Yamaha YPOW, I used that earlier this year when I reviewed one of their receivers, and it's awesome network receiver. Like it's so cool. And the loudness feature that you can control yourself is different than any other loudness features that I've come across. But their in-room correction is terrible. Like I even fired it up and I listened to it and I was like, what happened? So I messaged Chana, Techno Dad, and asked him about it. He was like, "Yep, that's Wipeout." I was like, "This is terrible, man." So like, never use this. I even said that in the review. But yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Actually, I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
Do you think that in general EQ is a benefit or a harm to sound quality when people are doing it for their speakers, or for people who are unskilled,
Yeah,
whether it's automatic or not?
Yeah, I think that it kind of goes back to my previous answer is that my experience has shown me that a lot of people that use EQ themselves, like build their own EQ profiles, tend to not really know how to implement it correctly. And so the automated ones generally do a better job. So for that reason, I would say manual EQ, you might be messing stuff up more than you're helping it. But if you've got good familiarity with it and you understand the implications of using EQ and the different cues and different frequencies and things like that, um, then yeah, you can definitely do a better job. You get the room taken care of easily. And if you have anechoic data for a speaker, as long as that speaker has good directivity, you can also EQ that speaker and give it a more balanced sound. There's a lot of speakers that I've come across that are not quite linear, or let's say they're pretty non-linear in overall response, but the directivity is good because the matching between the crossover between drivers is good. So you can EQ that speaker to have a better tonal balance and then put it into the room and then EQ for the room.
Okay.
Any other questions, Griffin?
Yeah, few. Erin, any plans to do videos on room treatment and or EQ?
I would say yes, but I've been saying that for 3 years, so I don't know anymore.
It's not an easy subject to
No,
tackle.
it's definitely
Concept of a
not.
plan.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those like I need a week solid of just filming, and I need to outline it. It's not
Yeah.
easy. I've even thought about just doing a live stream and just going. You're just talking, like, hey, here's no specific order to this stuff, but here we go. Because I think it'd be easier to do that than to put a video together.
I think a live stream can be also a very good place to just sort of spitball ideas. And then after you've had some time to interact with chat about it, speak about it, you have a better idea of what to write.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Or
More
Yeah, a
community feedback.
pre-production live stream.
Yeah, for sure.
Just make sure that you unlist the VOD after.
people do hate it when they encounter live streams and expect short videos.
Yeah,
but that's for me, that's the purpose of a live stream is it's like there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about and I really don't want to make a video around it right now.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, the amount of work that goes into it, like a live stream is just like however much time you're live, right? A
Yeah,
video is
exactly.
like a lot more
Editing.
time.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else, Griffin?
MGA says, Erin, what amps could you consider for people starting out with passive speaker systems that are less than $1,000?
I mean, I don't really know. There's so many different amplifiers out there that I wouldn't have an issue with. I mean, like the budget-friendly ones from Fozzy and AIMA, those are okay. Like the WIM stuff, I think those are good too. The WIM amp and the WIM amp Pro, I think, are probably the best values in audio right now. And I say that because of everything that's built into it. The fact that they have EQ built into it, dude, that's
They
awesome.
do everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
nice.
Like you got a problem with your room at like 50 hertz, bring it down. You've got other issues, you got other resonances that are like just too boomy or something doesn't sound right, it's squawking to you, EQ it, bring it down. And if you want to play around with it, you learn that way. Yeah, I think those are where it's at, honestly.
Good take. I endorse this.
Forrest asked, what's your best and worst experience at concerts?
At concerts?
Yeah,
I've not
so
had
like,
a-
what's
Are you much of a concert goer?
I mean, not really, not anymore. I don't like dealing with the
Fixed.
crowds. I'm getting old and
Yeah,
curmudgeonly.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't feel like dealing with parking, and I don't feel like trying to deal with getting out of it.
Well, and
Every
often this-
concert that I go to now, I stay at the hotel near the concert venue. So I just walk over and I can walk back to my room, and I don't have to worry about getting out of town.
And oftentimes the sound is pretty bad. It's not about the sound quality at concerts.
Yeah, you're not going to a
but the
concert, you're
experience,
going to
right?
con-
Like
concert,
seeing
the
whatever,
vibes.
but- yeah.
Right.
the
I don't-
only exception I would say there is symphonies.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't really have a best or a worst. I think the worst is just that, man, I take hearing protection with me now. I take those little and I put them
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
I used to not do that, but I do now. Man, I was telling somebody about this recently. Actually, it was my daughter. I guess her teacher played a Linkin Park song for her, and she didn't recognize it. And her teacher was like, "Menudo, isn't that the boy band from like the Spanish boy band?"
Minuendo, Norwegian made and surprisingly
Martin.
flat frequency response.
Okay, so
Worth getting if you go to a lot of concerts, though not for you.
you should wear Menudo headphones. I should have. So I saw Linkin Park before anybody knew who Linkin Park was. Like me and my friends, we went and saw them because we went to see POD. Y'all heard of POD?
Yeah.
Cable
Oh, yeah,
on
of course.
Deck? All right, so we went to see POD. They were playing this little show at 5 Points in Birmingham, Alabama. Probably a venue of like 500 people, if I had to guess. But two other bands opened up for them, and then one of those bands was Linkin Park. And then we were like, these guys sound cool. So my friend bought their CD. It was like a CDR, like they made themselves. And then the next year they started blowing up. So that's a cool story. I think maybe
Yeah.
that's my best concert experience was seeing them and having no idea who they
Correct.
were.
And worst?
Worst is just it's freaking loud, dude.
Yeah.
Like big headphones, and then dealing with drunk people. That's another reason why I don't like going to that stuff anymore. Is because it's just a bunch of older white drunk women, and I'm just over it at this point. I don't want to deal with them.
Okay, so I don't want to blame the victim here, but I will say you do listen to music for older white drunk women.
I realize that. I realize that. Victim shaming.
Yeah, a little bit, but I'm just saying
You're
you
not
might
wrong.
see a different
You're
demographic.
not
not
really
wrong, Erin.
appreciate that. I really appreciate that input, but I've got to go now. So
Fair enough. Fair
And that's
enough.
the end of that.
you're not wrong. Yeah, I've had a couple experiences. I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people
But
at
you're
concerts can
definitely
be
right.
obnoxious.
if I wouldn't go to Motley Crue concerts, I wouldn't have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's like me going to a metal concert and being like, wow, everyone stinks here. Of fucking
No,
course
that's a
they
good-
do. They haven't showered in fucking years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also
You know,
true of
you're definitely
Can
right.
Also true of Can Jam. Very smelly. Wear more deodorant, guys.
Yeah,
I'm
take
definitely going to
showers.
have to go to a Can Jam sometime, just so I can smell you guys and smack you
No,
on the head.
I don't like that at all.
Man, what you listen to? All right, cool. I'm out.
No, it's actually all right. Like if you go to the shows the way we do, which is not really to try much of the gear.
Yeah.
Like these days, like there's maybe a handful of things that we try, but
There's
we
no
tried
like
everything else.
the home audio shows. I don't go to listen to the stuff that's there because they're often set up in hotel rooms that are just not good. I go to meet people and hang out with people and
Yeah.
get a few demos, walk into a few rooms. Maybe if there's a company I'm really interested in, I can see them face to face and be like, I'm the guy you've been ignoring for the last year and a half, and I'm here now. So I need a business card and I'm going to email you next week. Yeah, not to fight them.
I mean,
but
I have had times where the manufacturers come up to me at Can or at audio shows, and they try to nicely nudge me in the direction of covering their stuff more positively, right? Like,
oh, more positively. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like they won't outright be like, hey, say nicer things about our stuff, but they will try to endear themselves a little bit to be like, hey, well, you didn't like this thing about this, but really, like, have you considered that other people might like this about it? It's like, okay, yeah, but I didn't like it. It's my review.
Yeah, right. Let them.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like the other people should review it.
Yeah, exactly. Send it to them.
Yeah.
We have another question from chat. Harchu says, Erin, well, actually, I'm going to flip around what he said. Okay. He said, would it be valuable? But I think that it's more, he's speaking more prescriptively. He'd like to know if you'd be willing to do reviews of speakers with EQ and without EQ. So giving your conclusions of a speaker.
Yeah, I've done it before where I've actually used a mini DSP, built EQ filters, remeasured it to show people. I've done it enough to where I don't really think spending the time to remeasure it with EQ in place is necessary as much as I can say, hey, yeah, here's some EQ bands that I would recommend. I actually did that with a recent, I think the Totem Kin 1 I did that with. And I said, it's not a linear speaker, but you can EQ it and do these things at its price. I would use the WHIM amp and call it a day for like $800, $900 bucks. You get a pretty neat little speaker and a nice amplifier built in.
I have a question that's probably a dumb question, but in headphones, we deal with issues of unit variation quite a bit, often because the pads are like massively influential and there can be a lot of variation in the pads themselves.
Right.
With speakers, do you encounter unit variation?
That's not something I really test for anymore. Again, more for time, but I used to initially would test both samples. And for the most part, what I found was that speakers that you expected to have good variation did, and speakers that you did not. Like, and basically what that boils down to is if they're dirt cheap, yeah, you're going to hear different sounds. If they're reasonably priced, like $500 or more, then the components are pretty good from unit to unit, and you really don't have to worry about it. So,
right. Okay, interesting. I don't really have many more questions. I do actually need to run.
Yeah.
It is. So apparently,
we said this was going to be a short stream.
Yeah. So I have to go deal with that.
So
yeah.
By our standards, it's extremely short.
Yeah. So if you guys want to keep chatting, by all means. But I do have to run. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Erin, and awesome to have you on. And really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Cheers to the rest of you folks. I hope me leaving the room doesn't ruin it.
No, it will. So. I'm about to head out too anyway.
Okay.
All the fun's gone.
Yeah, but we'll have a couple minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Now you guys can talk shit about me while I'm gone.
Exactly.
Okay, bye.
Oh, finally.
Lack of
shit. Oh my God.
Furniture. What a loser.
Okay, what fucks with me? This is actually shit I will talk to his face, but why does he pretend not to own furniture? He owns furniture, but he'll be like, I don't have a sofa or chairs, and he's sitting on a chair and has a love scene. He's like, why is he LARPing as the guy who doesn't have furniture?
He might be doing it just to troll you at this point. Like he knows it bothers you.
He does do that to Blaine specifically.
Yeah.
He does do that to me quite a lot, yes.
I like it.
It's funny, everyone's like, oh, Blaine's the troll here.
Little do they
I mean,
know.
Actually-
you're plenty guilty of this as well.
So, while we have you, since Andrew's left, how do you feel about how do you feel about analytical philosophy?
No, don't do this.
I'm out. Let me Google what analytical.
Oh, no, Aaron, don't Google it. Don't Google it. Don't worry. We're gonna put this nerd in his place real quick.
Method of approaching philosophical problems through analysis of the terms in which they are expressed, associated with Anglo-American philosophy of the early 20th century. That doesn't help. Where's the
That
thing
doesn't
that tells me
help.
what that is?
You're right. It doesn't help. It's made for
That doesn't
people
help me
with
at all. I don't know what that is.
broken brains and sullied hearts. You
Ugh.
need not worry about this.
I can guarantee because my
Oh,
girlfriend
Crin's
is
in
probably the
chat.
smartest person I
Why
know.
does
She
Crin
probably knows
show up
all
right
about
when Andrew leaves?
it. Yeah. Well, maybe another stream in the future we can talk about this.
Crin says
This
speakers are better than headphones. The grass is always greener, Crin.
that's pretty
Reindeer-
rich, given that Crin just bought an HE1.
I don't think that was for personal use though. That was for the store.
Oh, was it?
I mean, I assume so. Like one spends all of that money if A, they can deduct it, and B, they can justify it as bringing in money, right?
Counterpoint, Taycan.
Wait, what is that?
He has a Taycan.
What is a Taycan?
Oh my god.
Titanium can?
It's a Porsche. He has a Porsche
Oh.
in Singapore, which is
That's
very
also for the
expensive.
business. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Let's write
nice.
that one off.
Congratulations. Yep,
But
I
yeah,
gave up
Corinne,
on this
basically what we
analytical
were saying earlier is that they both have their own benefits. Headphones are portable. They typically lack room modes. Speakers are obviously, I think, at a baseline
Immersive.
better sounding. Yeah, because of that, I think. Like, I think if you were to compare like a single mono speaker to a headphone, I think it actually might be a little bit closer, but that's not how people really use speakers.
Oh, actually, I did have an important one that I almost forgot. So,
What's up?
Erin, you've said that you've had people fuck up their systems with DSP a lot. I've
Yeah.
got a story that I want to know if you've ever heard anything this bad.
Okay.
So I know this guy goes by the username of Cello. He's from Turkey. He has somehow managed to have his speakers, not his headphones, but his speakers, set to mono for multiple months without noticing it.
Is
Have
this
you
cello?
ever heard of it? Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of all sorts of things, man. And I've been a victim of some of those. Like I was going to a car audio competition. So like sound quality, right? Where you try to make your stereo in your car sound as good as it possibly can. A lot of DSP is involved.
Yeah.
And in order to work on just my mid bass, I had turned my subwoofer off because I didn't want to bother my neighbors. And I drove 2 hours to a show with my subwoofer turned off. Didn't realize it. Went to compete in the show. The judge gets out of my car and he starts talking. He's like, yeah, everything sounds good, blah, blah, blah. Like, but 20 hertz is really missing impact. And I was like, dude, I've got two 15-inch infinite baffle subwoofers in that car. They should be not missing any impact at all. So I get in and I can't remember how I figured it out, but I figured out that I disabled my subwoofer off the head unit. And I was like, oh, well, that would explain it, but just that's a prime example of the things that we don't catch.
Okay, but I will say, you would have noticed if it was mono.
I would hope that I would
In
have
a
noticed
car?
it was mono. I would have hoped. I've noticed where I've hooked up like the RCAs or speaker wires in reverse order, like not out of polarity, but like left to right. And
Yep.
I'll be listening. I'm like, that shaker's supposed to come from over there, not over there. And I'll get up and I'm like, oh, I see why. Yeah, I would hope I would have noticed if I had it mixed down to mono, which I do occasionally to check out tonality differences between speakers.
Sorry, I just DM'd something to Blaine that is we're basically just talking about Andrew's furniture and how
we're still talking shit
we're
about
gathering
him.
examples so we can present them to him as an intervention.
This poor guy.
You need to stop
I
this,
mean-
Andrew.
I mean, you say this. That's what he wants to be. Anyway, so no. All right, let's see. I wanted to shame Cello for having listened on mono for years, over months. What else do I have on my to-do list? If you could be sent any headphones that we have, is there any that would interest you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go Google what you got and then research.
Well, I mean, look, it seems like what Erin is, if not prioritizing, interested in when it comes to headphones would be ones that have some sense of spaciousness, right?
I like that, but I think for a headphone, I'm willing to forgo the attempt to get that because I know that it's probably not going to be what I want. So I would lean toward like give me perfect tonality if possible. Probably what I default.
Interesting. Do you still want perfect tonality if every time you move your head it makes a sound like squeaky
No,
plastic?
that would be really annoying. It would take me out of the whole effect.
Okay, so if Cameron's still in chat, maybe he can field that one. Sorry, I'm just putting another of our content creators on blast for his collab product. So Critical has a question for you. He wants to know which you'd pick between an A500 and an 8341.
Oh, the Bacart versus the Genelec.
Yeah.
Which one is the 8341? The one? Is that one?
Yeah, it is the one. It's one of the coaxials.
I'll make sure.
It's the second smallest.
The second smallest, so it's not the huge one, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Well, it's not small, but
it's
right.
large.
Yeah, they're both kind of big. I say both. Actually, more of them than that. Let me look real fast. Just kind of. I'm going to go with the Genelec. I'm going to default to it. Yeah, I'm going to default to it simply because it's a coaxial, and Genelec makes really good coaxial speakers. If it was like another brand that maybe I'm not familiar with, their coaxial, I might be like, I don't know, because the Bacart stuff's good too. But I'm going to go with the Genelec on that because I like that coaxial source point sound.
Oh, actually, on the note of coaxial stuff, I'm going to get eviscerated by the people I know who speak German, but have you do you think you'd be at some point able to review was it music electronic Geithane? ME Geithane?
Oh,
those ones that have the weird mid-range and tweeter array in front of
I remember
woofer.
that. I came across, and I might have even sent them an email.
Because those things, because like they have cardioid enclosures and shit, which is wild. And there's nobody doing reviews of them in English.
I'm wondering if that's the one where somebody sent me and they were like, "Are these real cardioid?" And I was like, "There's no way that's an actual cardioid," but maybe it's not because there's all sorts of other stuff out there too. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into that one again. I don't remember much about it, but I remember seeing it and I remember looking at it before.
I would be so excited to see that reviewed.
Now that coaxials have been brought up, someone in chat did mention that they had a question about coaxials a way back, which is...
What is that question?
I'm trying to find it. I'm curious on Erin's thoughts for coaxials that have some issues at high frequencies, such as the LSX2 and Kali IN8V2. Is it noticeable? I feel like you would have mentioned that in your review.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the diffraction.
Oh, you mean the axial thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the diffraction is so high in Q that you might notice it, but it's not to the degree that the data looks like it. Like if you psychoacoustic smooth it, something like that, then you might realize like, oh, it's not so bad. You know, it's a little bit broader, but it's not as deep or something like that. So I'm hesitant to say that you're going to notice those things. I think even in the reviews, unless I noticed it, I was kind of like, I'm not too pressed by it. Yeah, all these things, you know,
Go ahead.
It's the default answer for me on all this stuff is it depends. But I think on something like that, I wouldn't, especially at their price points, what you do get, I'm not too worried about it.
Given that the IN8, and I'm just pointing at that one in particular because I don't remember how the LSX measures, but that's like a really narrow, like a 10-degree on-axis notch, right?
I have to go back and look, but I remember it being kind of like, and it's because the former sticks out above the tweeter, which I thought was kind of odd. I'm like, why did they do that? Because listen, they're an engineering mindset company, right? Like Charles Sprinkle designed those speakers. That dude ain't messing around. So I'm curious about that, but yeah.
Well, but what I was thinking is, you know, And I know you've done this, I believe, in some of your reviews, but like one almost wonders if a different normalization angle makes more sense, because that seems like a speaker that looks massively better if you just use like 10 degrees left or right as the reference axis.
Yeah, and some speakers are like that. And I've even like the MoFi Source Point 8, I think was
Oh
one
yeah.
of them. Maybe the Kef reference, or not reference, the R3 Meta was one of them that did a little bit better off axis. Some of them do better off axis. And what I've noticed, like with Kef, is the more money you pay, the less you have to worry about that diffraction element really
Mhm.
mattering. Like, so if you go to their reference speakers, that's pretty much a non-issue at that point.
Yeah,
But
the
with their
Better
cheaper ones are
tangerines.
definitely the ones that have the issue.
yeah, with their Q ones, there's more diffraction there. And then it also depends on the cabinet too. So yeah, it just depends. I try to call that out in my reviews when I run into it though. If I see like it's definitely better at this angle than this angle.
Yeah, from what I remember of the inexpensive Kef reviews I've seen from you, you do fairly often mention it.
Yeah. They tend to be more problematic.
Hey, Erin, your review made me consider the Kef LSX2 LT. Did the same for me. Would you say the LS50 is much better by comparison?
Is the LSX2 the small one?
Yeah,
The
the small
thumbnail
one. It's
one?
actually the one that you're holding in the thumbnail of this video.
Yeah.
It's
By
the
the
rear
way,
one.
I'm like, where did that come from? Was I actually holding those? Oh, that's
Griffin
right. I
made
forgot
that.
I did that in the
There's a
video.
moment in that video where you're
Oh,
holding
yeah.
them and bouncing around. And I was like, I am taking that and doing something with it because it was so
That's pretty
funny.
good. I really couldn't remember. I saw the thumbnail and I was like, when did I do that? So okay.
Now we got cameras in your house, Erin.
Well, that's cool. You know, whatever. As long as you're paying me for it.
Checks
Yeah,
in the
I think the LSX, the LT, I think is more. I'm recalling off my head. I think it's more nonlinear. Um, I think I'd probably say the LS50 Meta is probably the better speaker, just objectively speaking and tonally speaking. You know, as far as just raw performance goes. But I think the LT, you know, you get a smaller compact speaker, you get different inputs and output, not output. Well, does that have an output? Anyway, you get different inputs. So, and it's powered, right? So that's where your money's going.
That's fair. Yeah, the data, I mean, seems to support that. Like the difference between the LS50 and the LSX2. That kind of diffraction, coaxial poopiness that we see in that 10K-ish area on a lot of the cheaper stuff isn't really present on the LS50. So
We've got a couple questions in chat, but I've realized that I want to actually supersede them with my own questions.
Okay. Then I'm a split.
Yes. Okay. How long do I have to be subscribed to you on Patreon before I can ask you to build a Linkwitz 521 and measure it with the Clipple?
Let me see. What tier are you at?
not I think I'm at the $10 tier if you have one. I don't know.
Let's see what the price is of that, and I'm just going to do some math. 13, let's just say about 15K, 15,000 divided by 10.
Okay, hold on. That's way too much. It costs like $2,000.
12, that's 125. I can't math right now. Let me go back to that. Did I do that right? I feel like I'm missing something here. 1,500 a month.
basically, Blaine, you've got to get your money up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long time, man. We'll probably both be dead before that happens. No, I've actually I spoke with the guy who took over for Linkwitz at, I think he was at Expona or one of these other shows, and it's probably not happening. I don't think they're sending me anything. So I tried though. If somebody has a pair, let me know.
I've always wanted to see good data on, I mean, any of Linkwitz's stuff other than the Orion. That's like the only one anyone measured.
Yeah. Did I do the Pluto one or did I do the Orion? Do you remember?
You did the Pluto. You did the one that's the tube. I guess I should have included that. I never really cared that much of the Pluto because it wasn't truly, you know, it was like, it wasn't a dipole. So it always felt a little like.
It's like a glorified DIY speaker is really what it is.
I mean, to be fair, all of the later Linkwitz speakers were DIY speakers, but
yeah, I guess, have you seen one up close? Like, It uses PVC. It uses
Yeah,
some
no,
Oh, I
scrap
know.
pieces of
It's
wood.
got like
to
a
hold.
pipe and then just a bare driver.
Yeah, and then the bare driver
Yeah.
is kind of like held up on a standoff of like 2 pieces of like 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch, whatever wood you wanna use, and it's got some like
Yeah.
drywall screws holding. It's just like it's the most.
It's not as elegant, to say the
Yeah.
least.
I mean, I built it for a review, so I mean, yeah, it's an
So,
interesting speaker.
and you're not willing to do that with a 521,
If somebody would bring me one, I would do it, but I don't have time
but
to
you
do
won't build
DIY
it.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just
it's
not
fair.
yeah, I'm just past that, you know? Even Solon is sending me out a DIY speaker, and they asked if I'd be willing to review it, and I said, "I'm interested in reviewing it, but you guys are gonna need to build it for me because I'm not." That's like a week of my time, and I've got so much else going on that a week for me to build a speaker turns into like a month, right?
Yep.
Get all the tools down, set everything up. You know, like if I weren't doing this and I paused it, I could knock out a DIY build pretty quickly, but I've got all this stuff going on. This isn't my job.
That's right.
That's fair.
Erin.
On the last freak
please
speaker
con-
question, actually.
Oh, all right,
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah. Have you ever had a chance to hear one of Manger's speakers?
No,
Or is it Manger?
I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but no, I've not. Are those the ones with the weird diffraction grills on them?
No, those are the ones that have
Oh yeah.
what maybe
No, they
they
are.
are.
They are. Yeah.
Is it a diffraction grill?
Yeah,
Because
they've got
I
that.
thought their whole thing was that weird stitch driver with the foam around the edge.
Well, oh, so you may be talking about a different one, but the ones I'm thinking of, if you go to their website, they've got like a pattern thing on the grill,
Yes.
and that's
All right,
like
so we are talking about the same
I've
one.
come to know that as like a diffraction ring. I actually saw it
I
first
can
time I
see
ever
that.
saw it used was Car Audio. It was designed by was it Dr. Doug Winkler, I think, to help alter the beaming point of that speaker to effectively make an 8-inch woofer into like a 4 or something like that inch mid range or something, so you could extend the high frequency response out. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that's sure as heck what it reminds me of.
Those
Their
look weird.
claim is that it's basically that it was a BMR before BMRs were BMRs.
Okay.
Like they claim that its bending wave design makes it a point source, even though it's like 8 inches.
Okay.
That
Interesting.
sounds pretty sus.
Listen, everything sounds sus these days.
That's why I've never had a chance to hear one. I've never seen any real measurements of them other than the ones Princeton did. But I'm always curious about them because it's such a freakish driver and it's ancient. And they've been doing this for like 40 years. And
Yeah.
I know so little about it.
Yeah. I'm looking on the website right now. I mean, it's definitely an interesting speaker. I would have to go through and read their marketing as to where they think that the effect, the benefit is made. But you know, it could be good or it could be just junk. I don't know.
Fair enough. Now I'll let the chat ask questions.
Erin.
I'll say this real fast, because I get a lot of requests for me to review XYZ speaker. Most likely, I've already reached out to the company. If you haven't seen it, it's because I can't get it. So what I encourage people to do is if there's something they really want to see data like me review, email the manufacturer and be like, listen, I'm really interested in your speaker, but I'm only interested in it if you send it to this guy and he reviews it and you know, it looks all right.
That's a good idea. We should tell our audience to do that more, actually.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, like
or
I
they
don't
can buy
know
it
that
and
it
send it
always
to
helps, but one person reached out to a manufacturer. They asked me if I reviewed it, and I said no, I haven't. So they reached out to the manufacturer and said, "Would you send this over to Aaron to give him my info?" And then he messaged me on Steve Hoffman forum actually and said, "They said they sent it to you. Here's their contact." So I contacted them, and they sent me a speaker. So it's worked out. Yeah, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
No, but everything
wasn't
went
the
according
Boris
to
one.
plan, and you got the gear to test. That's
Yeah.
something that the audiences need to take note of. So take note, audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now a
Yeah.
question from chat.
Okay.
Erin, well, maybe not a question. Erin, please consider creating a Discord server. I know many people that would love to chat there as well as me. I think you were thinking about it at one point and then decided not to.
I posted it on my Patreon and asked people there, and I think the feedback that I got was mostly like, "That would be cool, but it's probably going to consume a lot of your time to manage it, and if you don't want to do that, then don't bother with it." Like I was thinking, if I could just start it and just leave it, and if I never came back to it, that would be cool.
If you
But it
pick
doesn't
good
sound-
mods, you can, but
Yeah,
finding good mods is hard.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. So I'll probably won't bother.
Reasonable. If you ever change your mind, I would be willing to help you with that.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
What Patreon tier would you test Audio Quest cables?
Let me see how much they cost.
I
Divided
think
by
they vary
number,
pretty widely.
Divide it by the number of months that you're subscribed to that tier, and then we'll see. Oh man, actually, I do want to do an ABX test for a couple different things, and cables is one because I've got an ABX comparator to do all this stuff with.
Did
So
you
I would
actually
do
get
that.
the Daddario one?
Yeah, the Van Alstyne. Sorry, I almost
Sorry,
said
Van
Dan-
Alstyne. That's what I think.
Van Alstyne ABX comparator. Yeah, I found somebody last year out of like Michigan or something who had one in perfect shape, and so I bought it used off of him. Saved a little bit of money, but not much.
Sick.
The one thing, if it's used, you'll want to check that it's, well, I mean, I'm sure you know this, but some of the early ones had a shared ground. So for any
Yeah.
BTL amps, they would just short them to ground.
Yeah.
So that's
I
one
recall
thing to
seeing
be
they had like a
careful of.
V2 for it, right?
Yeah.
This one was made in, so I bought it last December. So I bought it in 2023 and it was made in 2022.
Oh, good.
So
Perfect.
it was in all respects, it was practically brand new. That's why I was excited. I mean, normally wouldn't have paid what I paid, but I was like, dude, this is in killer shape. And it came
I
with
mean,
the
that's
paperwork
just,
and everything.
I mean, it's a cute device.
Oh yeah, it's just like it's one of those you buy. If you're a reviewer, you buy it and you hang on to it and you use it. And then somebody says, "Can you hear the difference?" Be like, "Well, I can set up an ABX test and we'll figure it out."
That alone is worth it.
Yeah,
I ask people to do this so often, and so seldom is anyone willing to. People will literally buy a $20,000 amp and then be like, "No, I won't consider ABXing it with like a $1,500, $1,000 ABX switcher."
yeah, I get it. And then I also get, some people look at gear as just like a something they've wanted to have. Like the
Yeah.
Macintosh. I'm that way with Macintosh gear, so I've got some Macintosh stuff coming my way. And do I think it
Nice.
performs better than something that's a fifth of the cost? No, not really. But do I like the way it looks, and does it give me some sense of pride of ownership? Definitely.
If you like it, you should have it. Like, that's the thing. Assuming you can afford it, but
Yeah, I work hard. So, and my thing is, I was talking to somebody at work yesterday about this. I'm going to enjoy my money while I have it because I've already got a bad back and arthritis creeping in a couple of different areas. So, when it's time for me to retire, I probably won't be able to do anything. So, I'm going to enjoy my money while I got it.
it's sensible.
Damn right.
People sleep on that too much. I know actually a close family friend of mine who is one of the only people I know who has like not just a fully funded retirement, but he like retired early and saved millions of dollars and stuff, and he just got diagnosed with cancer. And he's like 63. That's like,
Sucks, dude.
you never know what's coming down the barrel at you, man.
Yeah.
Today's all we got for sure.
For sure. I mean, I don't encourage people to go out and go broke, but save you up a nice nest egg, hold on to it that you got enough, to last you for, I don't know, 6 months to a year if something happens. And then after that, man, enjoy it.
Here.
Of course, it does admittedly serve us at headphones.com, although you can buy with lower risk if you buy from headphones.com. Listen, I still do need to actually do the sponsored thing because otherwise people will forget that we're, corporate shills.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to get called out for talking to you guys. Probably. I can't believe that you would go on and they would endorse a website. I'm like, don't worry, bro. I got paid $5,000, so it was worth it.
Bro, why are you leaking
you
our
guys are
purchase
getting
agreement?
paid?
Right? You getting paid for this?
Can you imagine we paid Erin $5,000?
Could you imagine how good you'd be doing if you could afford to do that?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Right,
we don't
yeah.
got that,
I
bro.
wish
have
that
no
we had
idea.
paid you $5,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I wish that we had a $5,000 episode budget. That would be so good.
That would be amazing.
Dude, I'd go
First
out
of
and
all,
hire
we'd
an
all be
editor.
eating on stream. We'd be having
Well, all right. So you say that, but if we did eat on stream, we'd probably have a higher episode budget because more people would watch.
Yeah, maybe.
It's that mukbang thing,
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know if those
I would hire an editor. I get those emails all the time. Like, we'd like to edit your videos. We can help you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Yeah, I'm good. I can't afford you.
Yeah.
You want $100? I can't afford that. This video might make $100. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the sad part about it is like we're now at a point obviously where we can afford editors, but even then, headphones.com is money losing on this whole channel to a ludicrous degree.
Yeah.
And we try to keep our belts tight if we can,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really just sort of a shame because there's a lot of great content that could exist if YouTube's payouts were like what they were 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. Oh, it's so low, man. Yeah, that's what we were talking earlier about. It's just there's no way I'm ever quit my job to do this. There's just no freaking way. Like, I mean, I make good money at my job. I like what I do, and dude, the insurance. Like, I mean, if I quit that and then started working for YouTube and had to pay for my own insurance, and then YouTube was like, "Hey, we're shutting down this platform." Okay.
yeah, guess I'll die.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to work, but I could literally make more in a week working a second job at like Home Depot or Lowe's than I could off a month of YouTube. This is no joke.
Yeah, it's weird because everyone assumes that people make big money on YouTube for some reason.
Some
I guess
guys,
because people used to.
some guys do. I mean, like
True.
some guys, I know that they make good money, but they also do things that I don't want to do. Like they take on advertising for brands or they get paid for event show coverage and stuff like that, which I'm friends with these guys. So I have no problem with them doing it, but I don't want to do that. You know, like I don't want to get to a point where I depend on that for money. So
Yeah, it's respectable.
yeah, everybody's got their own thing, you know, so whatever. It is what it is. All right. Y'all got one more? I got one more and then I'm out. I'm getting hungry.
Just we have someone asking you to do content with asking you to do ASMR content.
Oh, actually, no. This is actually a very good question, and it's
There we
from
go.
the
Yeah.
guy Michael that we mentioned earlier. Starts good topics on the forum, so I do want to
Okay.
ask this one.
Okay.
What's the best way for someone with a basic speaker system in a small room to do some measurements and see what could most easily be improved?
Oh, honestly, that's pretty easy. It's easy for me to tell you. I don't know how easy it is for somebody that's new to implement, but download Room EQ Wizard. It's free. And if you've ever used it before and you can afford to donate, please donate to that. So download Room EQ Wizard, get mini DSP, UMic 1. I think they're maybe like $120, maybe. That's the only money you've
Something
really
like
got to
that, yeah.
spend. Something like that. Okay. Set up your laptop, measure your room, and then mainly just try to focus on like 400 or 500 hertz and below. And then I'm assuming you've got equalization somewhere. Like WIM has it built in. Some of these Odyssey, some of these AVRs have them built in. Computer setups have them built in, or you can download them. So assuming that you've already got the ability to EQ, then just go into that program and find the areas that are sticking up really high and bring those down. And the areas that are dipped, just don't touch them because you're probably going to wind up making it worse. If you have something like a mini DSP, the same thing applies. Just go into that and correct below about 400 or 500 hertz, and that's kind of taking care of the room. If you still find something that you don't like, then you can try to correct for the speaker's response. But if you don't know what the speaker's doing before you put it into the room, then you might be causing more damage to, not causing damage, but making things worse, I would say.
Mhm.
So I think that the easiest way to do it, Room EQ Wizard, a UMic 1, 500 hertz and below via EQ, bring the stuff down.
Awesome, concise answer with all of the essentials. I think everyone in chat could probably benefit from that information.
I can too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's not that hard to do that. But anyways, we'll go ahead and let you go, Erin. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Thank you.
joining us today.
I
Always a
appreciate it,
pleasure
man.
to have you on.
Yeah, I like hanging out with you guys. Y'all are a good bunch.
Whether or not headphones.com figures out how to send you something, I'll make sure that some headphones get sent to you before the next time you're on. I want to hear your impressions of like an HT800S.
Yeah, that'll work. That'd be cool.
Also curious for that.
Yeah. I'll lie and say they're good and then
No,
I'm
don't
like,
lie.
I'm just
Don't
being
lie.
terrible.
Please. We want to hear how bad you think they are. About
Yeah,
I
whatever
mean, this
headphones we send you.
show is all about negativity at its core. So really,
the
you'd
best
be
way to
breaking
go.
our brand.
That's how you generate content, make money. Yeah.
That's right.
$10, baby. This video's gonna make $10. You'll have to split it.
And on that note, we're gonna end the stream. So thanks to all the viewers for watching. Thanks again to Erin from Erin's Audio Corner.
Thanks for having
You
me.
should check out his YouTube, his website, his Patreon. which I'll add to the description after we close out this video. But this video is going to be unlisted. You're only going to be able to find it in the North Floor playlist, which is going to be on our channel, but kind of behind a few walls. So you'll have to go digging for it. But anyway, thanks so much to everyone for joining. Thanks again to Blaine as well. And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace out.
Later.
Bye.
Go